All right, we got under 1 minute, so if everyone could please find their seats. All right, it is 6 o'clock on the dot. I'm going to call this city council meeting to order. Today is April 21st, 2025, and up first is the invocation by Pastor Steve Ferris from the First Baptist Church of Destin.
Well, Father, we just want to thank you for this beautiful day and this beautiful city that you've given us to live in, and Lord, this beautiful nation, Lord. We're blessed beyond measure, beyond anything that's ever happened. And Lord, as we come into the season that's post-Easter, Lord, help us to remember that you died for a reason, Lord, that we could walk in a newness of life, and Lord, to love one another and treat each other fairly and follow you. And Lord, we just pray for our leaders here and around the world. Lord, you command us to do that, to give them wisdom, protection, and Lord, just help us to be who you would have us to be. We thank you tonight and ask your blessings on this meeting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Hebert with the pledge.
Please join me with your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for being here. Thank you, Councilwoman Hebert, for the pledge. For the agenda approval, I do have two requests for 4A and 4C to be moved at the very beginning for time's sake, and I was going to see if I can get a motion and a second on that.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Do I hear a second?
I'll make a second.
All right. Do I hear any other changes to the agenda as written? All right. Seeing none, I'll call the vote for the agenda with those two. Yeah, I didn't do it. Yep. All right, so I'll call the vote for the agenda with 4A and C moved up first. Okay, we'll wait for the call. No, it's just lagging on you. All right.
Just roll call it.
Yeah, roll call real quick. We'll start with Councilman Braden. All right.
Yes.
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 All right, 7-0, ayes have it, so moved. Up first will be 4A Crosstown Connector, the EIR.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a report from our consulting engineers, Adkins, who has designed the Crosstown Connector. They've got a final report on the environmental impact report for your consideration and adoption tonight. And along with that, and they can speak to this a little bit more during their presentation, but if you recall, we were hopefully going to get approval from the DOT to phase this project that would allow us to do a procurement for the stormwater component prior to the procurement for the construction of the roadway. And that would do two things. It would preserve our $2 million grant from DOT, and it would also preserve our ability to retain the interest that we have accrued on the money that we have invested from the loan proceeds. So we did receive that approval, and I want to tip a hat to Kelly Horton for her hard work to get that through and across the finish line, but we got it last week. So brings us to two additional items that we're going to ask you to consider tonight. One is part of Adkins' task order was to prepare the bid documents, and we began discussing with them a short time ago the potential of phasing it and doing the stormwater component and then the construction component. So they have been working along those lines, and we hope to have that ready to go by the end of this week. So one of two things can happen. Either we can bring it back to you at the first meeting in May for your approval, or once it's completed, we could go ahead and advertise and get it on the street. Time is pretty critical, and for two reasons. One is to get the clock running so that we can spend money off of our loan proceeds and preserve the interest there. And second, to get ahead of what tariffs may be coming our way and cost increase. So that would be one request. And the second being, along with that, would be the approval of a request of qualifications for the CEI component of that project. Because of the magnitude and scope of work, it's going to require a second procurement component. So the RFQ would be the appropriate means to do that. We're well on our way to having that document prepared as well. So with your approval, we could get it on the street quickly also. So that will be at your pleasure. And Atkins is here, and they'll give you a brief update on the EIR report, and then we'll ask how you'd like to move forward with these two other requests.
Awesome. Just push that button, that gray button. Yep, there you go.
Okay. Got slides for me? Sure. Okay. Good evening, council members. My name is Matt Taylor. I'm with Atkins Realis, and I'll be giving an update on the Crosstown Connector to you tonight. I want to talk about next slide, please. I want to talk about two things, as Mr. Jones mentioned, an update on the EIR reevaluation and the construction phasing. Next slide. As a refresher, the environmental impact report reevaluation, this was approved by the council back in April of '24, and so I'll just a quick refresher on why we're doing this. This document was needed for state or federal funding. It was required because it was more than a year since the original EIR was prepared, and there were significant changes to the typical section in the stormwater design since the last EIR. Next slide. Completion of this document makes the project eligible for state funding. This document does not make it eligible for federal funding. And then lastly, what does the EIR do? It evaluates impacts of the changes in design, existing conditions, and applicable laws on each environmental resource. It develops measures to offset adverse impacts. It documents a coordination with public agencies, and it verifies consistency with the TPO planning documentation. Next slide. Oop. And I went through that slide. So next slide, please. There we go. Okay. So the draft EIR reevaluation was submitted to the city in April, and comments were incorporated, and a final draft was submitted in March. The conclusions were that the changes in the design and the existing conditions do not change the conclusions in the original EIR regarding the environmental resources. We were able to identify the changes in the applicable laws and regulations require a commitment from the city to coordinate with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service regarding species and suitable habitat in the project area. Next slide. So those commitments are, the city must conduct a pre-construction survey for the following species: gopher tortoise, burrowing owls, and bald eagle's nests. The city must include DOT standard protection measures for the eastern indigo snake. And then the city must consult with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service if the following species become formally listed in the Endangered Species Act. These are the tricolored bat and the monarch butterfly. All of these items will be included in the construction RFP. Okay, so next slide. So conclusions, we determined the Crosstown Connector project is compliant with the environmental laws and regulations and can proceed to the construction phase. And we request the city's approval of the EIR document to make it eligible for state funding. Okay, now a brief discussion on construction phasing. As Mr. Jones mentioned, we talked about breaking up the project into two different construction packages. So next slide. So again, why would we break this up? It's because the city has construction funds now that need to be spent to avoid additional finance charges and penalties. You must start spending that money soon. It needs to be spent before the DOT funding, which will be available, which will be in the fall or later this year. And so next steps, we'd like to get approval from the city on construction phasing and its limits. It's my understanding staff has already discussed with DOT, and they have no objections to phasing the construction. Okay, so we looked at how we would phase this project. What would the limits of construction be? We looked at a logical, efficient separation of the work area. We looked at eliminating rework and throwaway work. What makes logical sense, what parts of the project need to be constructed first. That would be the drainage areas, the stormwater ponds. And we looked at construction costs and construction durations of each of potential phases. So we made a recommendation to the city that the area in red, this is the stormwater underground chambers and the inflow pipes, be constructed first in the phase 1. This effort might take about 4 to 6 months to complete. Then the phase 2 would just be the remainder of the project. That's everything else. And then the pipes from the remainder of the project could simply tie in to the inflow pipes constructed in phase 1. That part of the project, the rest of the project might take 16 to 18 months. And then finally, the last slide is just a potential schedule of what this might look like. Phase 1, starting construction in or around summer of this year, ending in early 26. And phase 2, starting in early 26, finishing in mid 27. Next slide. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your presentation, Matt. Up first, I have Councilwoman Trammell.
Yes, this is for the city manager. In my briefing, my understanding was that there was a time crunch that may hinder us from doing this in a timely manner.
Would hinder us from doing it?
Yeah, well, not
Well,
period, but
yeah.
we needed to expedite it.
Yeah, to the degree we can for the, obviously, we don't know what's going on with prices, but every day they go up, so the quicker we can do that, the better. But probably more importantly is preserving the ability to capture the interest off of the money we have invested from our loan proceeds. There's some IRS regulations that you got to spend it within a certain time frame, or you get penalized, and the IRS gets to take that interest funding.
Okay,
And
that's
we're
the way I
actually
understood
counting
it.
on that for.
I just wanted to double check there before I made
yeah.
my motion.
Yes, ma'am.
I move that the council approve the advertisement for the RFB for the Crosstown Connector Phase 1 and the RFQ for the construction, engineering, and inspection services for the Crosstown Connector project, subject to the review and approval of the city manager and the city legal counsel.
I'll second that.
All right, and I got a motion and a second from Councilwoman Hebert. Any further discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote on the crosstown.
Yeah, my
I'm
question, Mr. Mayor, is
Yep, go on.
I'm not sure where that's coming from. The motion I have is about the report, so I just want to make sure. Do we have to accept the report, or I don't see that?
Would be a separate action, Councilmember.
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, I'll close the discussion, and we will vote on the topic. Call the question. All right, ayes have it, 7-0, so moved. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Larry.
Now action would be requested on approving and accepting the environmental impact report.
All right, so do I have a motion on accepting the report?
I'll make that motion.
All right, I got a motion by Councilwoman Hebert, seconded by Councilwoman Trammell. Any further discussions on the report? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote. Are you not, you asking for, oh, okay, oh. I'm sorry. No, you're good. Ray, can you reset for the second motion? All right, roll call it is. We're going to keep this going. Councilman Braden, please start us off.
Yes.
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 All right, that's 7-0, so moved. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, up next, community partners over at the county, 4C, Shores at
Item 4C.
Crystal Beach.
Thank you,
Larry.
Mr. Mayor. We have with us tonight Mr. Coffey, Deputy County Administrator, and Commissioner Palmer. And we thank them for being with us. The topic, or the item is regarding the shores at Crystal Beach, and Andy's going to pull that up for us. So previously, we had some conversation with the county as to the plans that they had submitted, and we presented comments back to them, and then we got the reply back from the county, and it leaves us in good shape, quite frankly. We need one small variance regarding the exit of the western component that needs to be 20 feet to accommodate fire code, and that encroaches about 6 feet in the northwest corner of the required setback. If you look there, it'll be on the top left of the screen. The code calls for a 10-foot setback, and what's there is 6 feet, but that allows for the required 20-foot width to accommodate the fire trucks. And then, there you go. So that's just in that turn radius. And then the other would be on the eastern parking lot, which is laid out to accommodate low-speed vehicles. And if you wish to move forward with that plan, then you need to direct staff to draft some language that would incorporate a low-speed vehicle parking component into our code, because we do not have that in there now. Otherwise, the county has agreed that if you'd rather have vehicle parking there, that would be acceptable as well. One other thing we have discussed is, if you'll see the sidewalk where it comes and it makes a jog back to the north, we're going to have it moved back into the closer to the crosswalk that you see there on the eastern component, so that it's not up next to the highway. It's more closer to the parking area. So that would be straight across, and then it'd make a 90-degree and a 90-degree back to get to the existing sidewalk. So depending on the direction you would have staff in the county to move forward, if you would like us to prepare the required variances to accommodate the 20-foot width of the exit on the western component, and to accommodate the low-speed vehicles on the eastern, we will take that direction and move forward with it.
All right, thank you, Larry. First, I have Councilwoman Hebert with a question.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if we need to address this to you or Mr. Coffey, but we were talking about the variances that we were trying not to do. But in this case, this was based on grant money and combined monies, so this is an exception to those. Please clarify.
Yes, ma'am. There were a number of variances that were required had we not made these changes, and the county went, to some great lengths, quite frankly, to get it to this point. And so, absent that 20-foot width, we're going to have to do some redesign to accommodate a fire truck, an emergency vehicle. Staff doesn't have any issue with that variance going from 10 to 6 feet for that very reason, and it's just that small from the right-of-way to the highway, quite frankly. So it's not very much of a variance at all. And the other side is just whether you want to accommodate low-speed vehicles or not.
And if we're accommodating low-speed vehicles, are we looking at 2 to 4 spots for those, or is it just the one spot?
All of the spots in the eastern lot are designed for low-speed vehicles.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yes,
I wanted to
ma'am.
make sure we had a lot, because that's the whole goal, is to
Yes, ma'am.
encourage LSVs down there on the beach anyway, in the beach parking. So, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you for those questions. Up next, Councilman Bagby.
So if we have the LSV policy, it's going to include the curb stops, because you didn't mention the curb stops.
I'm sorry. The curb stops, it's okay the way it is because the curb is elevated, and that's sufficient
Okay.
for that.
All right.
I'm sorry. You're right. I didn't address that.
All right, Councilman Schmidt.
Yeah, this is, appreciate it, y'all in the county for doing that. I would like to do one additional change, and that would be can you zoom out, please, whoever has the, zoom out. Oh, okay. Ultimately, I would like to make the western side of the parking lot a one-way in, and then you loop around and you exit on the second. So the very west would be the in, it'd be one way, and you would exit out. So then when you could continue going right, and if you don't find parking there, you can go to the next amazing beach that we have at Tarpon Beach Access. So I don't necessarily agree with the two-way on the right side there. So That'd be the only additional proposal that I'd add to that if it's,
I
whenever the
agree,
motion's made.
and I would agree with that.
Okay?
So would you guys like to, or someone, whether it's staff or from the county, just, I would love to hear your guys' projections on that.
We
You guys
have
are
had
good?
that conversation and would agree
Okay.
that that's probably the
So
best flow.
I'll go ahead and make a
right.
motion to move that the city council direct the county staff to revise the Shores at Crystal Beach plans to include curbing wheel stops for the LSV parking, proceed with the variance request submittal for the access way setback, accept the throat distance as designed, align, reconstruct the sidewalks as required by the code, adopt the standard for LSV parking spaces in a city-owned parking lot, public parking lot, and to adjust the entry-exit to be one-way.
I'll
based
second
upon
that.
proposed.
All right.
Anything else?
Good, does that work?
Wheel stops, we don't need because we raised the sidewalk.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's been accomplished.
Yep.
I was just reading.
All right, I have a
Thanks, Greg.
motion by Councilman Schmidt, second by Councilwoman Abear.
And just to clarify, the one-way is only in the western entrance into the western parking, or the eastern entrance into the western parking lot.
That's right.
That's one way in.
That what you're,
So you take away all those arrows and it'd be reverse. So the very western entrance would be an entrance, not an exit. So as soon as you get to the first turn, it's an entrance right there, not an exit.
oh.
You're
I
entering,
probably won't support
circling,
that.
and then you're turning right.
The street's right across from the eastern entrance, isn't it? Of the western parking lot?
Okay.
So if I'm coming down the street, if I go straight across the street,
You run straight into
you
that.
run straight into where it has both ways. So that should be the entrance.
Oh, switch it around.
And then the exit should be on the western side. The western side of the western parking lot.
Steve, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so yes, that alignment is correct, but what we would get into in this situation right here is that if you enter in here, you go around and you just get in this infinity loop right here. Whereas if this becomes the entrance right here, yes, people would have to turn right and somehow get through here and then out, but then it would no longer be this infinity loop of people blocking here. It would just force a constant flow to the other parking lots as needed.
What is the concern with the infinity loop?
The fact that somebody could just continually just do that loop over and over until a parking space becomes open.
And what prevents them from doing that anyway when you reverse those arrows?
Because once you get to here, if you come in here and you go all the way around, you have to exit out. You can't go this way. You wouldn't be able to turn left. It'd be a straight out or a right out. You could turn left to go.
You can turn left.
You can turn
do
left,
the
but
same thing.
you wouldn't be able to come back in to the parking lot.
Okay, so if I'm headed westbound on Scenic Gulf Drive, how do I get into that parking lot?
You can only make in that configuration right there. It would be only a right in, so you'd have to go further back down and around again.
Okay, no,
know about
I
that,
will
yeah.
not.
That's a
Do
cluster.
y'all go out there during the summer and see the cars parked in the, 10 cars deep down at that stop sign?
Either way, it's going to happen, 10 cars deep. This just prevents people, that configuration would just prevent people from doing that, like I said, the infinity loop. And it would force people down to the other parking lots and then down and down and down, so.
I think we were all in agreement to what you were saying, that we would just take out the middle right lane out. And I think everyone was assuming we were keeping the infinity loop. We were just going to make it one way only.
Yes.
Is what I think everyone was
Yeah.
shaking
So
their heads
if
to.
I'm
Sure, I'll
coming
make
from
Jim and everybody
98
happy, and we'll
if
change
I'm-
it to what you're saying. It's not a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
have to sit here and, it's
Yeah, if
okay.
I'm-
We can change it. It was
Okay.
just a recommendation.
Yeah, I
Staff
would-
thought that would be a good idea, but it sounds
I
like
just
you and
want to
others
make
don't
sure
agree.
that we're all on the same sheet. If I'm coming from 98 from the Holiday Inn Express, I want to be able to come straight across into that parking lot.
Understood.
Yeah.
And then if I do an infinity loop, I do it, you know where I'll be blocking traffic? In the parking lot, not up and down the highway.
All right. Councilman Destin,
Yeah.
anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I just needed some clarification on the modification of the ordinance about the low-speed vehicles. I think I heard someone say that would be in publicly owned parking lots only that it would apply. Is that correct? So my question was, that sounds like where it should be. I want to make sure it wasn't going to apply to all parking lots.
The recommendation was for publicly owned parking lots.
And that's where we need to go. Thanks.
All right, cool. I see nothing else on the board. We have the modification to it. Thank you, sir. I'll call the vote. Ray, do you got all that? All right. All right, ayes have it 7-0. So moved. All right, appreciate you guys showing up. Thank you for your time. All right, we will jump all the way to the front now. 1A, Harbor Walk Village Phase 2 Compliance Review Q&A. You brought the whole team. Push the button. Yes, sir. There you go.
It's been a while. Pardon me? He is, actually. He refused to come. Thank you. Well, good evening. On behalf of myself and the Legendary team, appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys tonight and to share with you Phase 2 at Harbor Walk. For those of you who don't know me, I think most of you do, my name is Dana Matthews. I'm a local lawyer, and I've been involved with Harbor Walk since, I guess, 2000, over 25 years since we started the process way back when. With me today is the Legendary team. Y'all know Peter Boss, the owner of Legendary Companies, Pete Knowles, who is sitting next to me, the president and the chief operating officer of Harbor Walk, Greg Darden, Vice President of Commercial Development, Chris Boss, Vice President of Residential Development, Tom Lynn, General Counsel, my trusty sidekick, Steve Tatum, who spends more time with you guys than I do, has been with us over 9 years, and he's been involved with various amendments at Harbor Walk and, of course, other projects, as you know, up and down the harbor. We also brought by Zoom, we have some consultants and for any technical questions that you might have. I don't remember if the four of you were at which one of these DOs. I think Dewey was here, but I can never remember because you guys have been public servants for so long. You get termed out, then you come back. But I thought it might be important, at least for some of the others of y'all who don't know the history of Harbor Walk. So if you would humor me and give me a few minutes to kind of give you a history lesson. I know that Daniel, Mr. Butler, has provided, I think, the original DO and all the amendments to the DO in your package, as well as parking studies that we had done at different points during the time. And I saw Mr. Braden. I told him he probably needed a new pair of glasses if he actually read through all that stuff. But it might be easier if I can kind of give you a summary in that way to kind of lay the ground for questions you might have. The original DO for Harbor Walk is in your package, 02-55, and it was actually approved on January 28th of 2003. That was almost 3 years from when we started. It was a process. Back at the time, there were no height limits in the city of Destin. You have different codes than you have today, obviously different comp plans than you have today. It was a big project. It's 14.7 acres at the heart of coming in over the bridge in the Destin. And so it took 2.5 years to get through the DO process, which eventually was approved on a 5-1 vote for council, but it went through several technical review committees and planning commissions and city council meetings before we ultimately got approved. So what was approved? What was approved was 170 condominium units at the time and 199,999 square feet of commercial. That was based on density that we had in the code at the time. I think it was 30 units an acre back then. And then we also had FAR, I think was 0.17 or 1.7. And so that's how that's how you determine intensity, obviously, and density. And that project, and out of the 14.7 acres, which is the ultimate size of what we call Harbor Walk Village, But out of the development side was about 5.7 acres for phase one. And that's what you've seen for the primary. You come in the main entranceway, everything on the west side. The height was all determined based on compatibility studies that were done by various consultants, including the cities, and it was determined that the height of the structure originally was one tower at not to exceed 157 feet at height, which was 9 to 13 stories from grade, the crown of Harbor Boulevard. Multiple other smaller buildings at 3 to 4 stories. And it had 1,373 parking requirements. I could go through every single component of the parking, but I assume that might be a question later, so instead of going through it now, we'll save that to later. But there was 1,373, which was based on the code requirements at the time. Fast forward about a year later, before any construction commenced, we have DO 04-13. They call that the First Amendment. That was approved on March 19th of 04 by the City Council on a 6-1 vote. What did it do? It added 122 residential dwelling units to the west side to phase one. Out of those, 48 of them went into the condo building. So instead of 170, you add 48, 218. It also allowed 74 additional residential dwelling units out of the 122 to be spread out. And if you see the DO, you'll see building A or D or K or L or whatever. You got to go to the site plan to figure out where the buildings are. But of course, you can go out there today because that's where they're at. But that's also what the development order addressed. So essentially, it confirmed 292 residential condominium units in the building and to be spread about. And also, it allowed a second tower not to exceed, again, the 157 feet. And then parking, because of the additional residential condominium units, the parking requirements went up to 1,587. And again, you got to remember, this is assuming everything gets built. This is based on design. And everything didn't get built, but I wanted to make that point. Impact fees were about $1,254,000 were paid to the city on that project. Now construction commences. And so that's in 04. I think we started closing those units in the spring of 07. Not a good time for closing condominium units in Destin. For any of y'all remember when realestate.com ended. Being a real estate development lawyer, dealing with 20% hard money down, people walking on their contracts. I mean, it happened all over. And it was a very difficult time for anybody in the development community, including the city of Destin, and we felt it in our tax base. But our developer, visionary, legendary, was able to sustain and finish the project and close on these units. But during that time, before we even went to closings in 07, we started the process of going to a second phase. It was very important to vest under the city's codes and comp plan at the time any additional entitlements for the next 9 acres, the eastern 9 acres of this 14.7 acre site. And in fact, my client, we ended up submitting, and you may remember this, I think Mr. Bagby, you were here for sure, we submitted under the Tier 3 category. Under Tier 3 category, you got bonus densities. You got bonus densities for intensity of use, you got bonus densities for RDUs, residential dwelling units, but only if you could provide public benefits that were acceptable to the city. And you didn't know that until you got to the last meeting with the city council and you started negotiating what those were. That development order, and the only reason why I tell you this is because what we ended up getting approved was a lot less than that. The request was 237 multifamily units, 235,000 in shopping center and commercial, 20,000 retail, 25,000 square feet in office. Ultimately, that was denied by the city. We couldn't come to terms on the public benefits part of it, and it was denied in March of 08. So went back to the drawing board, went back, work meeting with staff, and what you have today, what we have is our entitlements is under the phase 2, and it's DO 1002. I think they call it second amended resubmittal Tier 2, And under Tier 2, if you remember on the comp plan, that is a matter of right, provided you meet certain conditions. And ultimately, that was approved by the City Council on November 5th of 2009. Again, nobody in this council at the time, nor my client, thought that we'd be developing anytime soon because we were still in a, quote, recession, if you will, not just in this country, but around the world. We didn't think it would be another 10 years before we would be here, but it is what it is. And when it was submitted, it was submitted for 90 multifamily dwelling units. Again, we're talking about the east 9 acres, 90 multifamily dwelling units, 382,090 square feet of what we call non-residential development. That's under the code, which can be converted into, in this particular case, condo motel or motel units. There's 251 units and 25,000 in retail. So again, 90 multifamily dwelling units, short-term, 382,000 and some change, which would convert to 250 motel units and 25,000 in retail. That's what was approved. What was also approved is that these were conceptual plans. We didn't go to market and spend $2-3 million on a full set of architectural plans. So we created what's called a building envelope zone. And in that, it was important because on the height, we all agreed that we weren't going to go to the 157 feet. We were only going to go to 9 stories or 100 feet over grade for the east side. But we wanted to know out of that 9 acres where the zone would be, because we were talking about massing and orientation and view corridors and that kind of thing. And so in your package, you should have, can we pull this up, Steve? Who does this? This one right here? Okay, it's up there. I don't know if that shows well. If you look at you see a legend there. It says height limit box, previous building footprint, current building footprint. The purpose of this drawing is to show in the height limit box, I guess that's purple, is the big box all the way around. That's where any structures that were going to be over 9 stories had to be located within that zone. If you see the previous building footprint in red, conceptually, those are the 2 areas that we thought that there would be buildings that could potentially be between 9 stories, 100 feet in the red area. The current building footprint, again, this is current conceptual that's in your plans, is in blue. Again, just to show you that we've shrunk that area down. And if you look at it and you say, oh, there's a building there, there's a pool or whatever, that's from the previous concept, the previous conceptual, not the one that we're currently looking at. But I can tell you that's where the parking garage is going to be, which is going to be wrapped with these motel units. This area up here in the northwest corner, to the extent that there's going to be a building there, it's going to be anywhere between 60 and 90 units. We're not going to exceed what the council has already approved and what we're vested with. Although we're looking conceptually now in the plans you got, I think it shows 60 units, and I think it shows 245 motel units in the parking garage. So also at the time when as part of the DO, that multimodal, the city had adopted in January of 2009 the multimodal regulations that it has, which also gave you credits for certain type of multimodal improvements, like the transit stops that we agreed to put in as part of the plan, and certain ingress and egress and different things. The bottom line is that all got applied in this DO, in phase 2. It got applied for the new uses as well as to the old uses. And I think it's $665,000 was the estimated impact fees at that time. Of course, phase 2 has not been built. Also, the DO textually, in the text of the DO, if you've read it, And in the plans that were approved that you have, you'll see different conditions and different notes. What was important is that everybody knew these were conceptual drawings, that when we got to the final technical and of all the architectural and all the floor plans and the stormwater and the ingress and egress and the traffic, all those things had to be addressed in the future by staff. What we believed was that the DO and the textual language in the plans was it would all be done on a staff level and as a minor DO, not in front of, not the city council approval again, because they vested it. As long as you stayed within your zone, you didn't get outside the boxes and you didn't get outside the height and you met all the other technical requirements, then staff would be able to approve it. Of course, that was in 2009, and staff asked us if we would please come to the city council, and because to introduce this project, because it's been so long, and some of y'all have never seen it before, so we agreed to do that. The other thing that's happened since that time is, and I think it's in your report, in 2015, we had pretty much completed phase 1 at that point. And the marina, I forgot, the marina wasn't part of the DO, as y'all know. The marina gets done through the waterway boards and later on city council. But the marina, and you had to take into consideration the marina and the different uses within the marina, different slip usages, because if you're a charter boat, you required X amount of parking spaces per, depending on the capacity of the boat. If you're a pontoon, it's a different one. If you're a wave runner, it's a different one. So all this stuff had to be accounted for. So 2015, we were looking to actually reduce some of the units in phase 1 that hadn't been built, take it off the plans and convert, and take some of the commercial that hadn't been built and convert them into motel rooms. So we went and did what I call ground truthing and verification. And there is a letter from Ken Galander, it should be in your package, back in June of 2015, and John Hall from Emerald Grand, and I can't remember who it was from the city, but Lily spent several days down there counting parking spaces and identifying what the uses were, and then showing exactly how many parking spaces were required for each use. When they finished that report and that spreadsheet, and if you've looked at it, we have 72 excess parking. There's 1,146 spaces that were in existence in 2015 when this report was done, and 72 of them were in excess what was required in terms of what had been built at that point. And there were 4 of them that were vacant because we didn't have an occupancy of a particular tenant or whatever, even though they were accounted for. So what's happened since then? Since 2015, we finished up with what we call, I don't remember the DO number, but it was to take 37,000 square feet of the commercial that hadn't been built in phase 1, and to take 3 condo units that were big penthouse units that hadn't been built, and to convert that into motel rooms, smaller motel rooms, 34 of them to be exact. To do that, we had to go back and take the parking plan. We had to get another traffic study. Joe Poole, Southern Traffic Sciences, did it and did the analysis, and ended up being that we would have 20 less than the 72 excess if we actually completed it. We got approved in a DO amendment to that effect. And then in 2018, we went back to the city. Jennifer Bryla, I think, was the community development director, and we sought a director's determination, again, because Mr. Galander's letter was a director's determination. We wanted it again. We're constantly being cognizant of parking, traffic, et cetera, and we wanted the city to approve the baseline of the parking. And so that happened. I think that's in your package, but it actually was a development order that was issued to that effect. It's Development Order 18-13, issued May 23rd, 2018. Ms. Bryla's letter to Steve Tatum, and it had all the backup reports from 2015 and the letters and everything to confirm that happened. So did those 34 units get built? Nope. So again, just recently actually, My client pulled a building permit to build 24, I think, of the units, or 26? 26 of those units. So again, we have plenty of parking. We are over what we're required to have. And so now when we get to the phase 2, what are we going to do about parking? Once the final plans are approved by staff, we will be within the envelope. We will not exceed any of the entitlements that the city has given us on phase 2. We will comply with all technical requirements on stormwater, traffic, you name it. But what we've done over this last year in regard to some of those issues is that the city, as you know, hired Baskerville and Donovan to do a PD&E coming off the bridge because of traffic in general. That's why we're doing a cross-town, connector, all kinds of things. And my clients have been working with them. I think, Mr. Destin, I understand you've been quite a bit involved. Mr. Mayor, I think you've been involved. Pete Knowles has been involved, Mr. Darden, and our traffic people, working again with BD&E and with FDOT so that hopefully the approval. You know the new design that has us coming off the bridge heading east, and literally right now you see the sidewalk and grass and landscape and all that. That's going away, and there's going to be another drive aisle that's going to come off that bridge to keep traffic from to allow people that want to go east past Emerald Grand, instead of queuing up in the southbound lane waiting to turn in, that now we're going to have, it's approximately 300 feet, I think, is the depth of that drive aisle that will be one way into the project. You know that we worked also in preparation for phase 2 a few years ago to get FDOT and working with the city to approve 2 lanes heading west and turning south into the parking lot, and created a separate, before we had one roundabout and only 1 lane, now we've got 2, and so that's helped improve traffic circulation. If you look at part of the plan, and this would be the next drawing, please. This one here. If you look at the running east and west on the northern part of the project coming in, if you'll notice the drive aisles and the arrows, this is a new improved internal traffic pattern, creating a new roundabout there on the western side. It will always allow access through the parking garage on the west for anybody coming in, but it also is going around the roundabout and heading back to the east to allow access to the new parking garage, which you see is what phase 2A is going to be. And to come into there and then to exit there and then to have a one-way turnout heading east on the northeastern corner of the property. That's something that's new that wasn't in the prior version back in 2009, and again, working with the city and FDOT, again, for just traffic circulation purposes. The other thing is that, as you know, that there is no, we don't have to provide public benefits, but I think this project does provide public benefits, and I just want to share with you, my thoughts on that. When the parking garage is ultimately built, and that's, by the way, let me back up. So phase 2 was also designed in the DO and in construction plans to be built in sub-phases. Instead of just taking all 9 acres and turning it into a construction zone, to do it in sub-phases. The first phase of that is going to be the parking garage. And that parking garage, I cannot tell you today how many parking spaces are going to be in there. I can tell you it's going to be approximately 500 more than what were required for our entire site. And the staff will have all that to review once we get to the final design stage. We just signed a design contract with an architect last week, so for different stages, not full working drawings until we get through this process with you guys, but enough to be able to show elevations and floor plans and that kind of thing. But that's designed for, so you build the parking garage so people will have access to it, and a whole lot more capacity than what we need, because we're not going to have any of the phase 2 improvements done. We'll just have a parking garage. Then we're going to start wrapping the parking garage with 240, 245, 250, whatever the motel units are going to be based on their ultimate size, but it's not going to exceed the DO that you all have given us from back in 2009. Then the last phase will be then they'll do the recreational area, which you see on phase 2A, I think it shows it up there, and then that area at the top, that will be the last phase probably, which would be 60 to 90, units in that project, again, not to exceed our DO entitlements. So we think that providing, approximately 500 parking spaces for the public is a big public benefit for everybody, considering that parking always seems to be parking needs in Destin. We have been continuing to work with the city. I'm not quite sure. I've talked to staff and Ms. Kopp. I don't know exactly where the city's at, but I know with the acquisition of the property on the other side of the bridge next to Marina Acres that y'all bought from that guy up in Georgia, that it's at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, we're going to be finishing up the design plans for the boardwalk that's going to connect the north side to the south side. And of course, my client has to give an easement for that purpose. We don't have any problem with that. We're continuing to work with the city to make sure that when you get ready to go through that project, that we will be providing that public benefit without charging the city for it or the public. There is an interest in the city, and I think it's on the agenda later on. It'll be interesting to see what the latest is. I know the city has been working with Okaloosa County, and I assume TDC funds, I don't know that for sure, and with seeking additional grant money to potentially build an overpass from the north side of Harbor Boulevard over to the south side, or maybe a tunnel, again, to keep people, pedestrians, from actually having to walk across Highway 98. My client has been in conversations with the city, will continue to cooperate with the city. We think it's a great idea, and we will support the city in any of its grant requests with any of the regulatory agencies that they're working with. There's been through the PD&E, I think, from what I understand, preliminary, is that it might be beneficial when you come off the bridge and you get to the light at Stallman. Right now, you got one lane, short queue lane that goes north on Stallman, and there's been some discussion, from what I understand, from some city people and Baskerville Donovan, to create two lanes, an additional lane so you have two lanes going north in Stallman. We will continue to work with the city and anything we can do to support that project if that's something that the city really wants to do. So it's question and answer time. I hope I haven't been too wordy, but I'll be willing to answer any questions you have. If I can't answer them, hopefully our team can.
All right, up first, Councilman Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is tonight, why are you here?
Pardon me?
My first question is why are you here tonight?
Why am I here tonight? Because I was invited here by your staff and your city attorny to give a workshop and answer questions from any of the council members about Phase 2, since it was done so long ago that most people don't know anything about it, and that we have a DO that's good through October of 2031. And we've been working with the city since, I think, January or February of 24. And so it was time to get some approvals, and they asked us to come.
So if you approvals for what? And if you got a DO, why are you here? Why aren't you
So
building?
I'll just jump in for 1 second. The applicant came to the city expecting to go right to construction permitting. And so we said, you're going to need to go to council first. You're going to need a development order amendment because you're making changes to your most recently approved development order, all of the development orders as amended. And so in those discussions, they were invited to come have a question and answer session first prior to the approval meeting, just because the project had been approved so many years ago, and to answer any questions, and due to the major community impact of a project of that size.
So you're wanting to make changes or amend the development order?
Pardon me?
Ultimately, there will be an amendment to the development order, yes.
It will be an amendment to the development or a minor amendment, because you have to deal with stormwater, You got to deal with internal traffic circulation. You got to deal with impacts to external traffic circulation. You got to make sure that the building envelope is within the same envelope that you previously approved. The height is not exceeded. The density hasn't been exceeded. The intensity of use hasn't been exceeded. So that's done by the staff through a minor development order process. So yes. Matter of fact, all the other amendments that we've had, Mr. Braden, we've had a number of them. They've been done, other than the 3 I mentioned to you, every one of them is done on a staff level. And they've followed the rules, but every one of them have been documented.
I'd have to disagree with following the rules.
Pardon me?
I would have to disagree with following the rules with those amendments. I've read the amendments, and I know how the amendments was passed, especially Amendment 3, when, you know, the individuals that you work for, they don't, and that's probably why you're here tonight, because you don't have, or they don't have Ken Glander, they don't have Greg Casella, and they ain't got Jerry Miller here anymore. So now they come to the council, want the council's approval for amendments. I know they went to staff and wanted staff to change it, and staff couldn't change it because it's got to go to council. Just like the 3rd Amendment they had was supposed to go to council, and it didn't.
No,
Ken Glander just signed off on that himself, and then all of a sudden, you got, what, 2 additional floors to Emerald Grand.
No. Well, make sure you misunderstood. The 3rd Amendment was approved in November something of 2009 by the city council. It was approved by the staff didn't put in the staff report or in the approval of the DO what the vote was, but I can tell you it was similar. The only person that voted against it the first 2 times when we had 5-1, 6-1 votes, I believe was Larry Willigas, if I remember correctly. but anyway, it was approved by the city council at a public hearing.
Yeah, it may have been approved by the city council, but it was, I was involved back then some, and I know how the approvals went. The first reading got approved, and then all of a sudden on second reading, the city managers that they had in their pocket, Greg Casella and Ken Glander and Jerry Miller, would drop it on our desk and say there's been a couple minor changes to the second reading, nothing significant. Just go ahead and pass it. And there's a stack, you know, like this. We didn't have time to read that. So we took their word for it that there's just been minor changes. Well, the 3rd Amendment is just not a minor change.
It was considered a major development order for Phase 2, and that's how it was reviewed.
It was a major, and it got approved. I mean, I've read all of it, front and back, and I know, but
it went through, just to refresh your memory, it went through 3 technical review committee meetings, and then it also went to, I think, 2 LPA meetings, then it went to, I think it was 2, remember, Tier 3 had already gotten rejected. It went through several council meetings before it was ultimately approved. This wasn't done in the dark, it wasn't done in the shade, and I know you have your opinion, Mr. Braden, but I've been involved ever since then. I didn't have Greg Casala or Kenny Glander in my pocket, I can tell you that.
Well, no, it wasn't in yours.
We jumped through a lot of hoops, we spent a lot of money.
Go ahead. This is your amendments, 1 through 5. Here's your parking. It's bigger than all the development order and amendments. And it's funny that this multimodal was established in 2009, but all these parking studies and stuff was 2005, 2006, and 2008. But everybody says we have plenty of parking. But this parking study that was done, that I was told by Greg Casella, that I needed to go talk to Ken Glander and have him explain it to me, how it was pencil whipped by whoever was hired to, because I know the city did their study, we went down and counted, and then all of a sudden Emerald Grand does their parking study and comes back, we have plenty.
All I can tell you is there were parking studies done for every single DO. What I was telling you, after the construction, after Phase 1 has been built, not all intensity has been built there, but after it was built in 2015, we worked with the city and did a hand count. That's what, in the city's consultants, I think it was Renaissance at the time, reviewed all that. Our clients reviewed it. We went out and not only counted, but looked at the use of what boat was in there. What does that boat do? How many parking spaces did it require? That was approved by the city in 15, and it was re-verified in 2018. So it's, now can I tell you today, if the same John Doe tenant is in there that was there in 2018 and maybe now. If it's retail, it doesn't matter. You get one parking space per 250. If it's a different boat use, you would be correct. If there's one more pontoon instead of there was before, or one less charter boat, that could change that. I can tell you this, we will, if this is something that the council wants, we don't mind going back and recounting and updating that report since it was done in 18 to show you when we come back that and show staff what the current uses are. But those always change when tenants leave. But I'm telling you that the vested development order that we haven't started construction on, is going to create over 500 parking spaces more than is required. And it will be documented by staff. And it will be on paper. I mean, we're not trying to hide the ball on this.
So you're gonna have 500 more than parking spaces on what's proposed before tonight?
Yes, sir.
It's already, our DO's already been.
Yeah, the DO's already been done, but remember I told you that the plans don't get developed until later. Now here we fast forward 11 years, we're going to be going to construction, so we have to spend the money with the architects and engineers to have final design plans within the boundaries of the entitlements we have. We know that there is another need for parking. It doesn't matter what the city's codes are. I mean, we have projects all up and down the harbor that this festive environment that we've created, which is awesome for Destin with the boardwalk. But we know that our code, that sometimes there's more usage than what the code requires in parking. And so everybody's been creating additional parking. We're going to create additional parking.
So there's no more additional parking in this parking garage than what was proposed, say, 5 years ago?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
There's no more parking. You're not asking for no more parking on this parking garage than what, say, was proposed 5 or 6 years ago, 10 years ago. Still same parking garage.
All right. We have 1,146 parking spaces confirmed and verified by the city as of 2018. We have not built anything since, which was 72 more than what was required.
And that was the parking garage?
That's in the existing parking garage and existing surface parking. As you know, when phase 2 gets done, some of that surface parking is going away.
I get that,
so
but I'm asking about the parking garage.
In the parking garage.
I'm asking about the new parking garage that you're proposing to build.
Yes, sir.
That's not changing whatsoever.
When you say changing, what do you mean? We didn't have a numerical count of parking spaces in '09. We just knew what was required for the residential and the commercial components. And so that was identified in the DO. What is actually built will have to be built. I mean, we will have to have parking spaces to require that. We intend to build another 500 on top of that, make it available to the public.
So I have not seen, you're telling me I have not seen a parking garage design for phase 2?
That is correct. You are correct.
I've not seen any.
Well, you've seen conceptual going back in 2009, but have you seen an actual floor plan by floor plan, how many spaces? No, you have not seen that.
Okay. My other question would be, how many square feet for each proposed use was approved in the original DO, and how many square feet for each proposed unit use is being requested now for retail, residential, hotel?
We're not changing any of the way that the code reads, what we approved in 2009. Let's talk about the 382,000 square feet of non-residential. You determine motel units within that. In other words, you cannot exceed 382,000 square feet of a building. We, in our designs, think that we could do 252 condo motel units, okay, 2 bedrooms apiece. You're required under the code to have 1 parking space for 1 bedroom, a half a parking space for the 2nd bedroom. So you have to have 1.5 per each of those units. That was approved in the prior, and that is not changing. That is not changing. We're not trying to limit it. The commercial is based on 1, like retail, 1 per 250 square feet. So that's what the parking was based on. So if you take, depending on how much of the commercial is not used for the hotel, let's say out of the 382, you build 250 units, and there's 20,000 square foot left of commercial that can be used. You can apply the parking standards to that based on 1 per 250 square feet. That hasn't changed. The multifamily units that were approved, the 90, that is based on, I believe it is, what was it, Steve? Let me get that. That is 180 spaces were required for those 90 units. That is determined that not to exceed 3 bedrooms. 2 to 3 bedrooms required 180 parking spaces. We're not seeking to change that. Now, if we only build 60, which is one of the concept plans that you do have in your package, then that number would go down because it's based on 90 units as opposed to 60 units. But we're not seeking to eliminate parking other than only what's required, and then we want to build more than what's required for the public.
If you say there's a significant amount of parking in phase one, why can't all the employees for that establishment park on property? Why does some of them have to park off property?
Well, I guess I have not asked my client that. I'm not saying they can't park there. I know that in the second phase, just so you'll know.
Your client's here, you can ask him.
Huh?
Your client's here, you can ask him.
I don't think that's, I'll get the answer for you and I will let you know.
Okay.
But I want you to know though, that there is staff parking that is taken into consideration in phase two. I mean, you have to do, I think it's 1 per 20 bedrooms that you have to have. I think we have like 13 parking spaces just for one component of the project. You have to create staff parking.
Another question was, this DO was approved, like say, decades ago. Do you recognize the city has grown around you, and what will you do to minimize the negative impacts on the community with this?
Well, I guess beauty is always in the eyes of the beholder. There's some of you up here and some of you in the public that may not like Emerald Grand and Harbor Walk and what is brought to the city, and then there's others that think quite differently. It has become the anchor as you come over the bridge for the boardwalk. People come there and use our parking regardless of whether they're coming to Harbor Walk or not. They travel east along the boardwalk. It has provided a lot of business, I think, for other people. This collaborative effort that we've spent having this boardwalk I think it's been a positive thing. And it's definitely generated tax revenue from ad valorem taxes, the Department of Revenue taxes, and its support helps sustain the working harbor that we have. I don't know if you remember, I think we have up to 35, I'm not sure the exact number right now, charter boats. That was part of the thing that we committed to, is that we would provide a place for the charter boats to have a home because they had been there before with the Kelly docks. Yes, we have the fleet over another area, but our charter boat captains have definitely benefited by people walking up and down that boardwalk and seeing the fish come in every day and being hung up. And so I think, again, beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. All we can do to mitigate, we're not the creator of all the traffic in Destin. We're not the creator of parking issues in Destin. But we are working with the city and will continue to work through some of those improvements that I described on the second phase that I hope will help mitigate some of these issues you're talking about.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Councilman Gao.
Hi, sir.
Yes, how you doing, Mr. Gao?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
Good.
All right. I do have a list of questions here, and Mr. Braden did touch on a few of them. One thing I do want to reiterate, though, is something Councilman Braden brought up that I heard from the public when we raised parking prices in our public lots. A lot of the employees contacted me directly and stated that Emerald Grand employees were forced to park in public parking. Since we raised our fees, it raised that. And you're stating that the new parking garage is going to allow for spaces for all the employees of the Emerald Grand where they're not going to have to pay for public parking?
I didn't say that. I think that there will be parking available for them. I cannot tell you exactly how many extra parking spaces. I don't think the clients decided, okay, these 500 are just open for the public, or 450 are the public and 50 are for staff. I don't think we've gotten that far, but I will have that conversation, and I will definitely get that information back since two of y'all have raised that issue.
And it's not just me bringing up the issue. Like I said, the public brought it up to me, so it's my job to
That's
bring
fair.
it to you. And I do have a couple of questions here that I'd like to ask. And unfortunately, I apologize. For some reason, and I don't know why, because I'm looking around, nobody else is having the issue, but my internet keeps closing the page, so. Yeah, but it keeps dropping.
I know.
Oh, you guys keep dropping as well? So I have to keep scrolling back to try to reload. So some of these questions, I can't really refer to anything directly, but one of my questions is, when do the parking for all the kiosks get elevated? And can you show us a survey of everything on site and how many parking spaces are provided for each kiosk and
Yes,
use
sir.
on the property?
If you'll, Steve, is this in the, yes, in there? All right, can you pull this up? It's DO 18-13. And if you can go to the parking table, I think it's the fourth page or the third page. Keep going. We're looking for the schedule, parking schedule. Right there. You have to turn it. For those of you that have this in your package, I'm trying to have them pull it up here, but to answer your question, Mr. Gile, if you'll notice at the top, you'll see the first category called shopping center, approved for $199,999, which is what I told you. And then it shows you the various uses there. And it tells you if it's a restaurant, full service, how many square feet, how many parking spaces are required per square foot, and then the total parking required is your fifth column over. So the first part deals with what we call a shopping center. But to get to your very specific question, the next category on the second page has the marina, and it has all their different uses. Where did I see it? Hold on. All the kiosks are on here. Oh, yeah. Top of the second page. It has a category called kiosk/portable buildings for vendors and booking. And for instance, it says, and it breaks it up between booths, retail service office. It had 19 kiosks, portable building booths, one per 250 square feet, parking spaces required. It had the laser theater, the laser maze. I don't know if that answers your question, but we did take into consideration every structure down there. And remember, this was all re-verified in 18.
Okay. And do all the vessels and liveries have sufficient parking? And if they do, can you show me where on this sheet where you've got?
Yeah, if you go to the second page where it says marina, you see that on the left column?
And again, I apologize, I keep losing it, but
That's all right.
I'm
You
trying.
want mine?
It's here right now, so I'm
Okay.
trying to.
If you see there marina, you see a whole bunch of names of the vessels. In the second column, it tells you what type of vessel. So the first a bunch of them are charter vessels. Then you have, under boogies, leisure vessels. Then you've got snorkel or sightseeing boats. And the reason why these are broken out is because each type of vessel requires a different amount of parking space. So to overall answer your question, yes, we counted every parking space that's required for this specific type of vessel as of 2018. Again, I haven't gone back and done this, but we will. And we've accounted according to the code requirements.
right. One of the other things that you stated earlier, let me go to this one first. You said there's no plans for the parking garage yet, but how high are you planning to build this parking garage? And is there going to be anything on top of it, or is it going to be strictly dedicated to parking?
No, it's, all right, it's not going to exceed 9 stories or 100 foot from the crown of Harbor Boulevard. That's the code requirement. So the building will not exceed that. It will be parking spaces. It is a parking garage, but wrapped around it, similar to Emerald Grand, even though there's going to be a little different motif, but similar, wrapped around it are going to be the 250 units. But the first phase is going to be the parking. Does that make sense? In other words, a parking garage that has access through it to the walls and all the inner spaces, and to create the motel.
All right, so there's not going to be a restaurant, a pool, or anything at the top of it. It's just going to be strictly parking, and you're going to wrap the commercial
Well, we have
building.
382,000 square feet, so I can't tell you that there's not going to be some retail or commercial around that until it gets fully designed. We will not exceed what the city has approved. I can tell you that.
All right. So earlier you mentioned the boardwalk under the bridge, installment improvements, and you said we'll support, but you didn't really go into detail about what you're willing to support. And we understand that this is an impact to the city and its residents. So what I'm trying to understand is, what are you guys willing to contribute to the city to mitigate the impacts for this project? I mean, support can mean
Okay.
a plethora of things.
I'm going to try to answer this as politely as I can. We have a development order that's approved these vested entitlements. We're not required to provide any additional public benefits. What we are doing voluntarily is creating approximately 500 parking spaces, which is a tremendous cost at $22,000 to $24,000 a parking space, is a public benefit, in my opinion. The connecting the boardwalks, if the city has been, in the past, has, through grant money, has paid for the boardwalk to the extent that private property owners gave them an easement. I spent several years working on this boardwalk easement way back when. It terminates on the western side on my client's property, as you know. Y'all bought the property on the other side of the bridge. It's got to be connected. Y'all want it connected. You have to come on our property. We don't have a problem providing easement. We're not going to build the boardwalk, but we will help support it in any way we can. But we will create whatever easements that need to be built and design standard. We don't mind working with the designers of the city. We've done that for years. So we just want it to be a wide, we want to make sure it's safe. We want to make sure it's lit under the bridge so that it's safe pedestrian travel for the city's new property. And hopefully that boardwalk is going to continue further north on the north side, but that's a city council decision. So that's one thing. In terms of the tunnel under if the city elects and through its consultants and with grant money can do a tunnel or a pedestrian overpass, guess what? They got to come on our property on the other side of the street. We're going to work with the city to do that. We think it makes sense. It's a public safety issue. So are we going to build the overpass? No, that wouldn't be fair. But we will work with the city from a design standpoint, location siting, easements, whatever needs to be done. That's a public benefit.
All right. So you're basically saying support, by your definition, is providing easement?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And any design or other consulting work. It's important to know what we're doing on one side and y'all doing on the other side. I mean, that's just good private-public partnership.
I can tell you're getting a little frustrated. I'm just asking
Oh,
for
no,
definition
I'm not.
of your
I'm not.
terminology
I
that you
apologize.
utilized.
I don't mean to be. I'm not frustrated.
Yeah, I was just asking for clarification.
Sure.
All right, I think that'll cover me for now.
All right, Councilman Bagby, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. First, I want to thank the staff and the city attorney and legendary team, for the update. And that's all it is. I think if the staff had told us, you know, or introduced this piece, this is an update. No DOs are getting approved. The DO's already approved. All the envelopes are already identified. They're just updating you because a bunch of you haven't been here for every one of these meetings. I was on the council that voted against you on the Tier 3 because I didn't think y'all gave a sufficient amount of public benefit. You know, everybody had we had different opinions, but, you know, that council said no. The parking, and I leave it up to the staff and the city manager and the city attorney to make sure that we got the right amount of parking spaces in the right places and that we're not exceeding the building envelope. And I understand. Here's the thing I would like to see. This is just my opinion. I want to know when the turn lane is going in because that should go in before that parking garage goes in. I'll just be honest with you.
You're talking about the eastbound coming in off the bridge?
Eastbound turn lane coming off the bridge. That was one of the requirements in the original DO, or one of the agreements in the original DO. That turn lane has got to be there for everything else to work. The other reason that that's important is, yes, we are hopefully in the next year or so going to put a tunnel underneath 98. And where it lands, when you've already identified where it probably should land, and and you're right, it benefits you for if everybody in our parking lot is funneled through, you know, your property there, but you have a pedestrian crosswalk waiting area with final size and location to be confirmed on your Harbor Walk Village Phase 2 Civil. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect place for it to come, you know, and what we're looking at, just so you know, if you've missed a couple of our meetings, what's down at the east end of 30A, what they did between 30 Avenue and the east end of 30A, that's exactly what we're trying to reproduce here. It is amazing, and it fits this town to a T. So, you know, we've been working with consultants and people to get money, and the county's helping us out, although they've already left, but, you know, so we can get some matching grants to build this. So anything you can do to help us in that area or whatever, we would appreciate. But the turn lane has got to be one of the first things you do, because it doesn't matter how many parking spots, if people can't get to them and you're backing up traffic, you know, we're doing everything we can with the tunnel to improve the traffic flow at that intersection. As Mr. Destin has championed as the worst intersection in this town, even worse than the ones out where in the part of town I live in. And we've got to separate the people from the cars. And he's been championing that, and hopefully we will get that done. That's all I'm looking at. I appreciate y'all coming and updating. I mean, I knew most of this stuff, but there are a lot of folks that didn't know most of this stuff.
Are great
they
comments.
may have disagreed with what was, you know, what was done was the councils, all the previous councils followed the law. It wasn't like, I mean, I got elected because of the Emerald Grant, because as I told one of my opponents in '06, every time they add a story, I get more votes and you lose more votes. And so, you know, bless his heart, but, and I did. But they followed the law when they approved it, because they were told that they couldn't consider certain things, and they didn't. And so, thank you for coming. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate you guys making the effort to come and try to at least get the envelope that the council will have in expectations as we go forward. But there are two issues here as far as I'm concerned. The intersection, which as Jim says, and which I concur, is the worst performing intersection in the city. It's the worst performing intersection, not 100% because of your development, but a large part it is. People park all over on the north side, go to it. Those are your customers, and we approved the plan. So we are jointly responsible for fixing the problem, and that's where I expect us to move.
Yes, sir.
And the other big problem is the parking. Without knowing what your retail uses are going to be, it gets really fuzzy. I know that for my restaurants, I had to provide a 100 every 100 square feet was one parking space. Under that standard, you would need 2,250 spaces. I understand that's not the space just for your retail. It doesn't all apply because it's not all restaurant. I get that part.
I agree with you.
But until we parse it out, I don't want us to go forward with the idea that we're gonna go forward with you only need 4 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet.
And I'm sorry, that was for the retail component, but I agree with you, restaurants are treated differently.
And whatever the particular uses
Bars
are,
are
at
different.
least if we have a concept, we can come up with reasonable parking.
Yes, sir.
We all know there's not enough parking there.
Yep.
You don't have enough parking. At 100 square feet for every space, that's not enough parking for a successful restaurant either. I mean, it's about a third. So we've got a parking problem we need to address. And until we get more details, it's going to be impossible to do that. I looked at some of the boat figures too, and they seem a little bit skewed and off balance to me. We're going to have to get a better calculation. Some of the pontoon boats that appeared were underparked as far as I understand the parking requirements. So that's all going to be a work in progress, and we'll have to work with staff, and you will have to work with staff to make sure that we address those issues. But we've got to get the pedestrians out of that intersection, because there's what's stopping, and we all know in the summertime it's backed up 2 or 3 miles in each direction, and a lot of that is because of the pedestrians that are crossing back and forth. They're your customers, they're public, but they're going to your business from parking on the other side of north. So we need to do all we can reasonably do between the city and your gang there to try to fix that problem as best we can, because to add another 225,000 square feet and 382 multifamily hotel rooms and all of the things here, that's doubling close to it what you're doing now. And so what in the world is that going to do to the intersection if we don't make some improvements? I did notice you talking about you were working toward 2 lane ends onto Stallman. We made it quite clear in all the meetings I've been to that we didn't want to put a 4-lane bypass through the heart of Destin, and that was not an option. I don't know if I can hit Baskerville down and over the head with a bigger baseball bat.
I was going to say, that came from them.
Yeah.
So
I
we
know.
assumed that it came from y'all, and so we said, okay, well, we'll support
Yeah,
if that's what the city wants.
They don't listen very well. We'll see if we can get somebody that does listen better if they continue down that path. But
We're going to support you guys,
yeah,
okay?
so that's, we've got a lot of work to do to go forward. You've got to develop an order. We can't take that away from you lawfully, but we need for you to get together with us and let's fix some of these problems. It'll benefit you and it'll benefit us.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. I appreciate the update and the team being here. I think the history walk is awesome. When I was back in those days, I was either running around with your boys down there at Fat Tuesdays before it was built, and then while it was being built, I was at Alabama, tailgating and all that stuff. So it's good to hear it in a different aspect now, so thank you. A few questions, and I agree with Mr. Bagby and Mr. Destin. I understand all that. Going back to the parking plan, I think I understand you said 2015-18, the shared parking diagram or something.
Right, 1,146 spaces.
There's 72 spaces in excess right now?
There were back then.
There were back then. So does that mean then y'all feel like phase 1 parking is up to code, it meets the requirements then?
Based off
of
yeah,
that.
because we haven't built anything since then.
Right. So to highlight some of the things Mr. Guile was talking about, and I think you referenced that y'all might be okay with doing another plan study.
Yeah, I have no
Right.
problem with.
Just like to highlight a few things, for example, because this is an issue that I have with some of our city stuff, shared parking plans and change of use. Things change all the time, and then we never really follow up with making sure that the parking didn't change, and it kind of sneaks under the radar sometimes. Not just you guys, but this is a city issue. For example, Boogie's has like 500 wave runners over there. There's not a single mention of wave runners on the parking plan here.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, there is. I'm almost positive.
90 PW, okay, thank you. So, small handwriting here.
Yeah, 40 boogies at this, in 2015,
there it
they had
is.
40 pontoons and 90 PWCs, which I assume are wave runners. And they show you have to have 2.2 spaces per pontoon.
Thank you.
That's-
I
got
sat
it.
here and looked at this for 15 minutes and didn't see those two lines until
I
I
know,
sat here and asked the
It's hard.
question.
I had to look
Right
at it
there
too. I had
is.
to go find the kiosk.
As you see, I'm also turning this laptop sideways over here. Okay, so we're good with that then. I appreciate it. I still would like to take you up on doing another updated one, though. That would be nice. Do we know how many community center parking spaces we have? And the 2 lots off Zerby, do we know approximately?
The community center is, I think, I hate to say.
I'm not going to hold you to like an exact
Okay.
number, but
I think it's 101.
rough number. Y'all are offering to put 500 additional parking spots in this garage for the public or for somebody to use. It's not a requirement.
That's
for
correct.
your DO,
Approximately
which is
500.
awesome, right? So I would assume that those 500 parking spots would be probably in excess of the city lots. Would you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Right.
think the ones you got down on, across from Claude Perry's property, y'all have 146 surface parking spaces over there. Zerby, you got, what, 60 or something like that?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. but-
So we've been talking the whole Stallman intersection thing. I mean, yeah, it is a nightmare, and yes, a big part of it might have been because of the Emerald Grand, but it's not all their fault. Sure, it's the city agreed to it. But we also have been talking about this underpass that's starting to be discussed. But if y'all are gonna put 500 parking spots on the south side of 98, sounds like everybody's just gonna be able to park over there and not have to cross the street anymore. Potentially.
Well,
Unless the locals don't want to
that's
pay.
a great public benefit.
Up to 500.
Up to 500 vehicles. And I don't think we're putting that many on the
That's
north
paid
side.
parking for our locals.
Well, huh?
That would be paid parking if
I
they're
don't
over
know
there.
many locals that are parking on that lot and walking, but that's just
Yeah.
my opinion. But there's gonna be 500 of them, more than the city parking lots, I think. So, do you think there would ever be any willingness to like allow City of Destin residents with their decal to like go over there and park in those spaces? Would that like something that
What
we
do you
could
mean?
work?
You mean like just?
Like the additional public benefit, the garage is there, but you know, in the city of Destin, we have decals where we can park for free in our city lots.
I thought it cost me money every time I go in the city.
Well, you're not a city of Destin resident, are you?
If you were a taxpayer.
I don't believe.
I got to
You
figure
might
out
have
how
an
to use my
office somewhere.
dadgum phone to make it work.
Yeah. Well, just the idea to consider that the additional public benefits would be to act, a couple of people have been asking about the public, allowing the city of Destin residents to go over there and park in those 500 spaces for free all year long would be a kind of a nice public benefit in addition to y'all providing 500 spaces.
Well, I'll
Just
be
an idea to
more
kick
than happy.
around.
They're all here. We're,
Sure.
we're taking in everything you have to say.
Sure.
Counselor Schmidt, I have those numbers for you if you're ready.
Sure.
So the number of pay spaces, and this is not including the handicap spaces, at the community center, we have 82, Marlar Street, 142, and Zerby Street, 75, with the consideration that our undergrounding contractor is occupying one of
Right,
those
so at
lots at
least
the moment.
less than half of the 500 that you guys are going to provide as a public benefit. So, I mean, that's good to know for the future when we're also talking about multi-million-dollar pathways under or over ground. That's very good to know. Timeshares, that's a big thing that always gets discussed around the city. The timeshare situation in the Emerald Grand, I don't know if they still do them, they don't do them. Do you know if there's any plan to do timeshares in phase 2?
We haven't solidified any of that at this point.
Is there
That will
different-
be, the city staff will be notified once we get our final plan.
Would there be different requirements for timeshare units versus?
City code doesn't require it, differently based on parking, based on sleeping beds, as they call it.
Got it. You answered the wrapped parking garage question. All right. That's all I had, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to jump in. The parking requirements and kind of talking about the shared parking requirements, I'm going to try to dive in a little bit more where Councilman Guile and Schmidt left off. Do you know what the unadjusted parking requirements were before the shared parking agreement? a little north of
The,
2,600.
I think they were on the third D, I mean, when we got our phase two, oh, what the unadjusted was?
The unadjusted,
No,
yeah.
I don't remember.
If
off
we
the top of
weren't
my
going to do
head.
the shared parking, if you guys aren't doing mixed-use shared parking, what your all-in parking requirements would have been. I got it up
Well, I
to,
could tell you, basically, there's a 20% reduction for multimodal. And then there
Correct.
was an internal capture as well, based on an internal report approved by the city.
Okay.
I don't remember what that
Yeah,
was, but
that's it's
something
tracking with me.
north of 20%.
so that brings us, from what I've seen from all the documents, and I was trying to catch up on my history here as well, was the unadjusted was 2,677 spaces because of shared use logic and internal trip calculations. The requirement was reduced to 1,629 spaces, which becomes illegal. So that's where you're gifting us 500, but our shared parking usage, which is about letting pedestrians move around freely and safely through this harbor festive marketplace, really allowed you guys to take a reduction of 1,000. So
Well-
gifting us 5 of the 500 back, I appreciate, but I'm just letting you guys know, I love where we've been going with the overpass, underpass, if that seems to be an object. I agree that we need to work together for the land easement, but I also wanted to let my thoughts, and if there's any objections or if I've done my research wrong, that we're still 500 off from the original if we weren't having those shared parking agreements that were, codified in 18.
Well, that's if you built out 100% of the first phase DO, which hasn't happened.
Correct.
And that's before the multimodal that was applied and approved by council in 2009.
For sure. So I'm using all this just to say, I will be wanting to hold those past motions because of the shared parking requirements, which kind of makes this intent that this is a flowing, pedestrian-friendly community, that I just would like to make sure that, if anything, I'd like to stay not sideways with you guys, as we work on all these community public-private partnerships, that's what I'm always going to be going back to you guys. If I'm going to try to hold your feet to the fire to make public benefit, that's where I'll be coming from, is we had a shared parking agreement. You guys are doing more than enough on your own to house this all internally with traditional. But to your point, this is all under the shared parking arrangement. So I would just like to say that, the pedestrian overpass or underpass, the under the bridge, I would like to think of it as an obligation for you guys to commit to what we agreed on in 18 and prior to that. So that's just, if we can work on those things together, then I'm not going to have too much of a fuss, because I know legally you guys have your DO, but under that DO was a shared parking agreement. So I would just like to emphasize what that means as a partnership as we create better, safe pedestrian mobility in different avenues of projects. So that's just what I wanted to say and be upfront with you guys of where I'll be coming from if I get a chance to do that. And with that, I will turn it back over to the next person.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to
No,
clarify?
sir. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Braden? All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Destin?
Yeah, Mayor, that's the question I have, the 500 extra spaces. The parking garage is part of the parking that's required for the development to go forward. While it won't be used up until all phases are go through, I understand that part. Nonetheless, it is a requirement to go forward. So they're not going to give 500 spaces to the public. It's their parking, they need it. And the other question I had was multimodal. Didn't we get rid of multimodal? And I understand it was in place when they did their development order, but the fact is, a bunch of the requirements and the benefits. Go ahead, sorry.
The MMTD has not been taken away just yet. We haven't fully adopted the mobility. We've adopted a mobility plan. We haven't adopted the mobility feed yet, and the new LDC has not been adopted. Once all those three pieces fall, then the multimodal transportation district will be no longer, and the 20% reduction, all that will be no longer.
Which is where I was going with my conversation. It will eventually, and maybe not too long, and maybe before they get through with their project, be no more. And so the benefits that they had volunteered to do back in whenever the years were, they would be projects that can't possibly be done because there won't be any multimodal district. So that is a question that will get very fuzzy, and may well, if we don't all work together and try to solve our problems, may need a judicial ruling to tell us if you can use that as benefits, if you can't even build and there is no more multimodal. So another reason that we all need to work together and try to solve these, because that is going to go away. And so whatever reduction you got because of that, if it goes away, in fact, you can't do those things because there's no multimodal district. So you can do some other things. You can help us get that tunnel under, and at least to my way of thinking, if we share the cost, and you don't have to pay half, but if we share the cost, that's beneficial
$18
to
million?
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you.
those are your customers trying to get across that highway. They are citizens of Destin, I understand that. And they go all up and down the boardwalk, and that's, I understand too. They could even come to my restaurant occasionally. So I understand the obligation for all of us to work to a solution, but it would go a long way for you all to make a real substantial effort to help us with those problems. Because I remember before your development was there was not a bit of problem with that intersection, not one. We drove right through it every day and never slowed down.
There wasn't
That should
any
be pretty
problem
telling.
in Destin back in 1973.
Yep.
I was born in 94.
I said that for your benefit.
Yeah. All right. Councilman Schmidt?
Yeah, can you, Mr. Destin says some good things sometimes. Can you, you're not giving us 500 spaces. Can you clarify? What I didn't understand, or either can you clarify? You have to build a garage. You said you're going to give us 500 spaces. Do you disagree with what he was saying, or?
The parking garage is going to replace the surface parking that's
Right.
going to be gone, which is needed, and is going to provide parking for the development that we are doing as part of Phase 2, okay? Right now, I mean, you have 252 units is what were, 51 units were approved to 375 parking spaces. Now we're saying maybe it's only going to be 245, so it's going to drop a little bit. But the parking garage has to accommodate that. There is the 60 condo units or 90 condo units, whatever, somewhere in between that. 90 is what the city approved. They require 180 parking spaces, basically 2 spaces per unit. So you got 120 to 180. Those have to be built into the parking garage. The surface parking spaces that are going away have to be put into the garage. And there is a component for approximately 500 extra for the public. So that's how it breaks down. I know he was giving a summary version, so I was just trying to.
And then you just mentioned a minute ago, Phase 1 is not completely built out. What are we missing?
There's several thousand square foot of commercial that hasn't been built out, but frankly, I don't see that it going anywhere unless it gets transferred over to the other side because there's no place to build it. That 5 acres, 5.7 acres is developed.
So you can't build it right now?
Not there, no, not there. We'd have to seek an amendment that, we'd have to transfer that, we have the right to transfer density from the first phase to the second phase. I mean, it's throughout every one of the DOs. Okay. Matter of fact, this second concept, we had 25,000 square feet. We want to do 57,000 square feet. We're transferring it over from the first phase. It's still within that building. It's still got to provide parking for all that.
Got it. Thank you.
I hope that answers your
It did.
question.
I was wondering where you're going to build additional stuff.
Yeah, not going to be on, not on the left, not on the west side.
All right, Councilman Destin.
We can clarify, are you telling me tonight that there will be 500 spaces either in your parking garage or on your surface that will be dedicated to the public and will not be associated with the development of your property?
I'm telling you that it is, I have been told the final design is going to be approximately 500. I will be able to tell you in 30 days a whole lot better answer because we've got some design architects that are working on that right now. I just can't answer. I'm just telling you approximately 500.
Okay, so you are saying there's going to be some parking in that
In
project,
that garage for the public.
and that will not be associated with the development of your property at all?
Correct.
And we'll arrive at a number later.
Correct.
after we
It'll
figure it out.
it'll be probably charged parking like everywhere else in Destin.
And we will figure that out when we come to a conclusion about how much parking you actually need, because I didn't hear us talking about the 225,000 square feet of retail, exactly what that was going to be. Anyway, so that's what I'm saying, is it's still very fuzzy about what will be available, but you're saying something will be available.
Yeah, but remember when I told, never mind, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, right.
Okay.
That has to be identified by the staff as to every use and what the parking requirements are, and we have to build them.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, well, I think you've done it. The board's clear. I don't know what he's paying you, but hopefully it's worth this.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
So, the one thing on this, it seems like, and I'm not looking for a motion by any means, but it seems like what I did take note on that we all kind of already agree on, trying to leave it with a positive here, is the right-hand turn lane in. That seems like something we're all very much interested in, because I know that'll take FDOT and everyone discussing.
It's already a requirement of their deal.
Okay, so that's already rolling through. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have, so we'll get on with the actual council meeting now. What a presentation that was. All right. Public comments. Did anyone last from public comments? All right, seeing none, I'm about to close public comments. All right, we'll close public comments and move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote for the consent agenda, A through D. All right. I thought you was Jim.
Jim doesn't have it yet. He doesn't have it yet.
All right.
It's all snap.
New-
It's all snap. He lost it.
Oh, man. All right, new software it is.
Dear verbal.
New software.
I think we just need to reset the route.
Yeah.
I can only see one issue.
No issues over here, man.
It's library. Is it library? Different library?
It wasn't. No. All right, we're going to start down here.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
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 All right, ayes have it, 7-0. There it is on the board if you didn't hear. All right, moving right along. Larry, Mr. Jones.
We've handled 4A, so we'll move to 4B, which is a request for your consideration and approval of a minor deviation to a major development order for Morgan Sports Center. This encompasses the batting cage, the restrooms, and the maintenance facility. Your approval of this will allow us to move forward immediately with procurement for the batting cages. So we recommend your approval.
All right, Councilwoman Aber.
I'll make the motion to approve the amendment.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Second, Councilwoman Trammell. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's the timeline after we approve this for the next steps?
You've already approved us going out to bid on the batting cages, so that'll hit the streets probably Wednesday. We are going to run it through the Parks and Rec Committee tomorrow evening, just as an informational, but unless there's an issue there, which we don't anticipate, we will have it on the street Wednesday. And run concurrently with that is look at the opportunities to do it in-house, maybe save some time and some money.
And then that goes on the streets for 30 days, potentially?
Potentially, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. 4B.
Yep.
All right, there we go. 7-0. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bossman Jones.
Item 4D is the Destin Fire District Beach Safety Contract for 2025. This was contemplated and approved during the budget process for $282,175, and this is simply codifying what was approved during that budget process in the form of a contract with the fire district.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Do I have any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote for the fire district. All right, ayes have it, 7-0, so moved. Boss man.
Next item is 4E. We were asked at the March 17th City Council meeting to bring back at this meeting a roll-up of what's occurred in the enforcement during spring break on pretty much the beach, and we've got a couple other things we'll roll up in here with you. But enforcement activity since the implementation, and I will tell you, we do have a dedicated beach code officer now, and he is Officer Wilson doing a great job getting out there and interacting with the public and the ice cream and other vendors. But since we've had that in place, we've had one warning for a commercial event on the beach, which I believe was a wedding that we resolved very quickly with the property. We've had 6 warnings for soliciting or vending. We believe that we have warned or cited each ice cream vendor specifically. So any more violations will be citations. We have issued 2 citations for vending. We've investigated 4 reports, but we were not in a position to issue a citation because our officers did not observe any of the activities. But we've also had 3 warnings for beach chairs impeding foot traffic, 3 verbal warnings for animals on the beach. Our officers have interacted with the public considerably on information, holes, glass, and general vending regulations. We've had great cooperation and coordination with the Sheriff's Office. They have been there when we needed them, and they've certainly given us heads up and opportunities to deal with those that may be violating our codes. And I will say that, back to Officer Wilson just a moment, to give him a shout out. He's been cussed at, he's been threatened, he's been insulted, and he goes back out there every day to get some more of it. So we do appreciate his efforts going forward there. So as of this weekend, we were able to cite a boat operator for using our transit slips for their commercial purposes. We've gotten sufficient evidence to take them to the code magistrate in short order. We did trespass one ice cream vendor from June White Decker Park for violation there, and the Sheriff's Office issued a 1-year trespass warning against that individual. So we're still seeing a lot of the activity out there, but they are smart enough now to move offshore and to stay out of our jurisdiction. But we are working with the county to look at maybe some more efficient ways of enforcing our ordinances and some that they work collaboratively with the county on. We've also working with the Sheriff's Office.
Hey, Larry, real quick, the vendor for the ice cream, clarify for the public what that means that they've been issued a trespassing.
They were, is any other trespass warning, that they are precluded from coming back on that property for 1 year, or they can be arrested for trespassing. Is that correct, Captain?
Yeah, I believe it's any public park.
Any public park?
I believe so. I could be wrong with that, but my understanding it is for any public park.
And I noticed you lean forward, Sheriff, like, yep, we're ready to go, Presto.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So again, we are working with the Sheriff's Office on how we can more efficiently enforce our beach codes as well as some other codes around the city. So we appreciate the dialogue we're having with them, and we will continue that. So,
I have a question.
yes, sir.
Aldo.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the recap that was asked. All of the things that were highlighted here seem to be all geared around vending and soliciting on the beach. Like, why did we go out? Why did we go out and like task force that? What was the reason to go?
Why did we
go hunt for all the solicitors and the vendors out there?
Well, I think it was pretty clear from council back during this meeting that that was an objective that we wanted to put some effort into.
Because of illegal ice cream, or what was the specific reason?
Well, vending and ice cream being one of those, correct. Probably the biggest violator from what I understand.
So we had somebody complaining about illegal ice cream being sold, and then we sent a task force out to go make sure we're shutting down illegal vending and soliciting? Is that kind of,
Well, when you say task force, we have an officer that's been
we
assigned to
designate an
that.
officer
That's
specifically
correct.
to the beach?
Correct.
To deal with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because of the complaints of the illegal ice cream selling, probably.
That was certainly a large part of it, and then there was some threatened litigation that we felt we should respond to, and I think, you know, we're hoping we were following guidance from council as well.
So if we ever had vending allowed on the beach, you know, somebody want to go sell straw hats and things like that, then we wouldn't even be having these type of people getting cussed at and threatened and things like that?
That would probably be correct, yeah.
Okay, just curious. Thanks.
All right, you're good?
All right, Councilman Bagby.
Hey, could y'all give me the parking violation roll? You don't have to do it right now, but sometime the spring break parking violation roll up, because one of the things I noticed on the vending focus, 16 investigations, warnings, whatever, 2 actual fines. Okay, I understand you have to find them the first time, you have to give them the warning the first time, but hopefully the numbers won't sustain that ratio during the summer. But I'd like to know about the parking in the right-of-way or illegal parking that they did during the summer. Thanks.
I can give you that number, Mr. Bagby, from January 1 through to date. There have been 142 citations by code written for parking violations and 202 warnings in the parking lots through the passport system.
All right, Councilman Guile.
Yeah. Steve, how many technicians do you have on that enforcement side right now?
We have just one code officer that's been assigned to the special beach duty.
How many total employees do you have in that department right now?
Right now I have 5. We're going to be dropped down to 4 come Friday.
5 down to 4. Do you remember how many you had this time last year?
Not specifically, but it was definitely around 8.
So we had 8, and we're going to be at half capacity going into summer.
Correct.
Okay, and we're focusing on things like beach vending with half the capacity. I just want to be sure that I understand what our focus is, that we're trying to focus on here.
Yep. So going back to, what was it, November, I believe, we asked council, you know, I came with a 20 slide deck presentation, and Councilman Bagby was like, nope, let's cut this real short. Trash, parking, and signage. So we went forward with trash, parking, and signage, and hopefully those numbers since February or January have shown you all that it can be done.
Right.
And we were down down numbers from, in January from last year as well. So the enforcement can be done. It's just the prioritization and getting that done. And then what was noise was added to that a couple months later. And then now beach duty or beach solicitation, beach vending.
Okay.
So those 6-ish priorities, or 5 priorities, are really what we're trying to hammer. We're not ignoring the other blatant violations that the officers are seeing when they're out, but based on those priorities, yes. Now, some of these priorities ebb and flow, right? Parking is going to increase during the summer. Why? Well, because our population almost triples, quadruples during the summer, during the season, right? Beach solicitation. They're going to be out there when the people are out there. Signage is going to increase probably a little bit over the summer, but not a ton. Signage is generally more of an issue around special events. Trash is just kind of a continual thing, but I think we've done a really good job with awareness and education on that's beginning to be less and less of an issue. So I think we're getting there. in coordination with the sheriff's office on noise as well. I think we're getting into a groove where that's becoming less and less of a thing.
Well, I'm not trying to criticize where you
No,
guys
I know.
are.
I was just letting you know where
Yeah, I'm just
how
trying to
we're doing
understand
it.
some things. Right now, you have 4 personnel. We're focusing on trash, parking, signage, noise, beach, and I believe Councilman Stevens was really focused on harbor, and we wanted some harbor, and I think I brought that up last time. It'd be good to have harbor. So we have all these things that we're trying to ask you guys to take care of, but we've got 4 enforcement.
Yep.
Code enforcement officers.
And I think I updated you all a couple weeks ago as well about breaking the city up into sectors. So that puts a code officer in a sector. And so that's been working out really well because I think it keeps the officer in one geographical area and easy to respond to certain things.
And you've got short-term rentals as well, correct?
We do have, okay. Yes, sorry. So I have 5. I have 6 now. We'll have 5 by Friday. Yes, one of the code officers is, he strictly does STR registrations and livery registrations and those types of things. So he's a non-roving officer. So.
Okay, so we got 5 and you got a full plate.
Correct.
So, in your opinion, what's your biggest headache right now?
My biggest headache?
Yeah, largest amount of complaints, largest amount of manpower required.
Whatever the council is most disturbed by. Is our biggest-
I think, honestly, I think, after we got the initial 3 and we started kind of figuring it out, I think those main 3 have really kind of dropped off. Like I said, trash really is just an education piece. We're going to be adding, as was requested, I think back in November as well, adding long-term rentals to that trash requirement as well. So that's probably going to be pick up a little bit, but again, education. So I think those initial 3, we've really kind of gotten around to dropping those issues off a little bit, and so we're able to more focus on the more critical.
Okay, so those 3 aren't critical, but what I'm asking you is, what do you think is your most critical? What do you think is your biggest time-consuming duty that was assigned by council?
Honestly, they're all the same. Really, it's planning it, right? You give us a priority, right? And then it's just how do we attack it? And once we get that plan in place and initiate the plan, and then looking at the process, how can we make those efficiencies? So once we get it down, it's just the planning. So I'd say any initial, there isn't one of those 5 that is more time consuming. Now,
so noise takes up just as much time as beach, which takes up just as much time as STRs.
I wouldn't say they're equally take up as much time.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. What's your biggest burden? I don't know how else to ask you.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look. I mean, if we're talking just sheer hours, the fact that Officer Riley's out on Officer Wilson's out on the beach for 5-6 hours a day for 5 days a week, that's probably what's the most time consuming.
Okay, so the beach is probably the most time consuming. You're down to half the personnel you had. You still have the same 8 budgeted? You just haven't filled them, or?
Correct.
Okay, so it's just trying to find people at this
Correct.
point. But it just brings me to a question that I believe it was either last council meeting or council meeting before. Councilman Schmidt brought up possibly allowing beach vending, and if that were reevaluated by this council, that might reduce a big portion of your work.
That's certainly one way to look at it. If in order to drop it off completely, we wouldn't regulate it, right? We would just allow it and it would just be a thing, right? But if we do want to regulate it, that's now going to add to time for someone to sit and take in those applications for vending, beach, soliciting on the beach type permit, right?
So you're saying it's going to be half dozen, 6 in one basket, half dozen in another?
Something, I wouldn't say it'd be a 1-for-1, but it would certainly wouldn't just drop the headache.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to help support you and your department, Steve.
At the end of the day, it's manpower. If I can just get the slot's filled, we're good.
Well, he's got them budgeted, but evidently they're not applying or they're not qualified. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what we can do to help you in the meantime.
We have several applicants that we are interviewing, or that we've received applications for these positions. It's now it's on us to get to the interview part. So we
you're
do have.
failing?
What's that?
No, that was just a bad joke.
So I will tell you that we've had a couple interviews. So with the restructuring of code, right, put under community development, the director was made a manager. Community development director or deputy director of community development is now over code. Okay, took that manager position and made it an operations supervisor / training coordinator. Right, so this person's going to be basically the day-to-day individual. It's going to take care of scheduling, going to take care of assigning sectors and all that sort of stuff, as well as ensuring that all the officers are getting the appropriate training. Okay. On top of that, or below that, we took what was the former deputy director of code compliance and turned that into a senior code officer. Okay. So, and there's certain criteria to meet that, and so that's another open position. And then we have the 4, soon to be 5 open code compliance officer positions that we need to fill as well. We've interviewed for that ops supervisor, training coordinator position, a couple of really good candidates, so we're working through that. Hopefully going to look internally for the senior officer, but if not, if there's a really good candidate out there, we'll take for that. We'll look outside for that one. And then that point is just filling the code officer positions.
Okay, so there's nothing we can do to support you to help you perform this function easier.
Honestly, the biggest complaint, and this is not unique to Destin, it's pay, right? That's the biggest complaint, and probably one of the places where it's hard, right? But that's not a problem unique to Destin. So it's ensuring that the people, because right now one of the officers that works in the code, he has an hour and 20+ minute drive on a good day. There's traffic, that can be pushed to 2, and he's making base salary of the code officer. So
Okay, so you have 8, you've got 4 filled. If you took one of those off and maintained the same budget, could you disperse those funds? Is it fair to disperse those funds around the remaining 7, increase pay rates? Or is that not an option?
Well, anything's an option, but it's probably not the best option. We would
No, I'm just
probably
trying
want to
to-
look more holistically at, our pay schedule and, what the competitive rates are. And
So
make some
we
decisions
just
from
need to
there.
evaluate increasing pay up on this level to get higher quality personnel. All right, that's basically what I needed to know. I appreciate your time. And I like your
Absolutely.
haircut, Steve.
thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Councilwoman Trammell.
Yeah, I didn't even recognize you, Steve, when you walked in.
A lot of people are saying that.
Your annual haircut looks good.
Thank you.
I was just going to answer Mr. Giles' question. When you look into the salaries here, we are lower than any other municipality in Okaloosa County, but yet we have the biggest issues down here, especially during the summer. So it's not appropriate to look at it now, but I think we definitely need to be looking at increasing the salaries for those code people. To do what they do for $22,000 a year is just ridiculous to me. I just think that's crazy. But I wouldn't do it. I don't think any of us would do it. So I think we need to seriously look at that situation when we're asking what they do and how they do it, and they do it professionally, and then we're paying them a little more than minimum wage, it seems like. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilman Bagby.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you might look at the statute changed last year on the enforcement of the trash. I know for HOAs and COAs, it may have done so for municipalities also, where the rules of you have to have it off the street. You have to have it off the street within 24 hours of the pickup now, as opposed to most places have it, at the 6 p.m. the day of trash pickup, and you can't put it out until 6 p.m. the day before. That's actually not the state statute anymore, so you might, but it is an education thing to your point. I would look at that. That might help you with the trash. It might totally removed the trash from the list of priorities. But you're doing a great job. And while I've got you and the sheriff, thank y'all for the spring break that you did. Hopefully you will come give us a ramp up of all the miscreants you put in prison, or, you know, at least gave a notice to appear or whatever, but you guys did a great job. I know our numbers were down because I can tell by my neighborhood, and the house next to me wasn't even rented hardly half the time. So, but y'all did a great job even with those numbers.
Thank you.
All right.
What'd you do with all that beer and liquor in the back of that truck that was overloaded? I saw that over at Crystal
It's
Beach.
documented and poured out.
They had a fundraiser, I heard.
That hurts them more than the arrest most of the time.
All right, that was just an update. I've seen no motions on the floor, so we will move on. Bossman Larry.
Item 4F is regard to your request for us to reach out to the management at Henderson Beach State Park regarding dogs on the beach. We did that, and we were informed that the only dogs allowed on the beach are those identified as service animals. Plain and simple, no camper's privilege or local privilege, nor an appetite for a local privilege, because agency-wide, they do not allow dogs in state park beaches. And so that's the information we're bringing back to you for your
All right,
consideration.
Councilwoman Aber.
Quick question. We had also kicked around, just so that, you know, those are the folks that live in this, Okaloosa County, having a 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., just every day, those 2 hours, allow people with their dogs on, you know, on the beach so that they can at least have some time. Most people are up early walking a dog if they've got one that early anyway. Just maybe seeing if that would work. I don't know if everybody here on the council has anybody that, you know, has asked them about a beach opportunity, or what anyone's thoughts are on just a 2 hours in the morning from 6 to 8 to allow dogs on the beach.
Councilman Gao, you reply to that?
Yeah, if she's.
Okay, I assume that was the answer, yeah.
We just talked about the burden on code enforcement, and I think that's going to add another burden if we do that 2 hours, because now they've got to kind of scan that. But I'm not a big fan of dogs on the beach anyway because of unmanned landmines. You know, somebody's not going to take care of what they need to take care of, and it creates an issue for the general public.
All right, that's all I had on there. Anything else? Good to go? Okay. All right, safe streets for Destin.
Item 4G, this is regarding a proposal that we sought from Kimley Horn. Earlier this week, or last week, excuse me, I didn't give the days right, we met with Scott Betterman, who is now the interim Public Works Director for the county. And we had a great conversation regarding some surtax dollars available for the Stallman intersection, at a total of $3 million or perhaps more if the need be, to leverage for a potential underpass. If you recall, at the last meeting, we had a representative from Kimley Horn that talked about the Safe Streets for All grant from the Federal Department of Transportation that was available, and they had done some work with the Emerald Coast Planning Council regarding the potential of using those grants. Well, in our conversation subsequent to our meeting with the county, Mr. Bitterman, Kimley Horn representative indicated that the undergrounding or an underpass at the Stallman intersection would be an ideal candidate for these a SS4A grant. So we asked them to put us a proposal together, which they did. And Kimley Horn is one of our consulting engineers, so they're already under contract as one of our continuing service providers. They have good experience with applying for and securing funding through these grants. In fact, Lindsay, the young lady that was here at the last meeting, had captured over $30 million for her clients just last year. So we have before you for your consideration an engagement for Kimley Horn for $38,000 to go through the process of applying for the SS4A grant in this grant cycle. It's kind of timely because the deadline for application is June the 26th. And if we're going to use the funds that the county has in the pot for that Stallman intersection. It's going to have to go through a couple of county meetings, so we need to engage Kimley Horn in fairly short order if it be your appetite to move this forward. So based on that, if we want to go in this direction, we would absolutely recommend a motion to approve us to engage Kimley Horn in that process.
Mayor, I will make the recommended motion. I can have it. And I'll move the council approve the proposal for Kimberly Horn to prepare and submit an SS4A application for the pedestrian underpass near Stallman intersection. And the reason we had to put it on is it is a time crunch. And I will include in the motion to direct the finance director to come back and find a source of the income for us, unless the city manager already has.
We already have that. It's
Very good.
identified in our
I'll keep
engineering
it clean
budget.
then. I'll
Yes,
just
sir.
make the recommended motion.
I'll second it. Motion for the recommended motion. Do I hear a second?
I'd second it.
All right, Councilwoman Trammell, second. And then I have Councilman Bagby for discussion.
No, I'm good.
Nope. All right, Councilman Destin, anything further for discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote. Yeah, 7-0, so moved. All right.
Next item is 4H, is you asked us at the previous meeting to recommend a couple of dates for the SRS Master Plan Workshop. We've identified a couple of dates, however, the May 12th date may not be ideal. I believe at least one council member may not be here on that day, and as the councilor has identified that as the day after Mother's Day, so that may not be the best day, but we had identified May 12th and June 9th as potential dates. Those are Mondays, off-council dates, but if you would like one of those, great. If you would like a different one, that'd be fine too.
Can I recommend June 9th?
All right. Any kind of just open discussion on that? Are we nodding for 9th? June 9th? Okay. Let's
Make it June 9th. It looks like everyone can make that one.
Okay.
All right.
Item,
I'll just add, if you don't mind, Mr. Jones, can we make sure we're publicizing that very well? Yes, sir. In addition to what we already do, I just, it'd be nice to have some participation here.
Item 4I is, at the last meeting, you approved the amendment to the purchasing resolution 2210 with two contingencies. One is that we add some language regarding the ability to appeal a suspension or revocation of vending rights. We've added that language and have submitted it to you in your package. And there was a typo that required a correction from a $5 threshold to a $5,000 threshold. So those corrections have been made and submitted back to you.
All right.
4J is you ask us to look in, to contact DOT regarding the Airport Road lane delineators at the intersection there with Airport Road and 98. We did reach out to DOT and got a reply back from them that they would be in town on the 8th of May, and they would have conversation with us about what our desires would be for that intersection and look at what options are available and give us back a report on that. And they also indicated that while they were in town, they would be reviewing the intersection up at Lowe's and Whole Foods. So we'll get that moving as well. Item 4K are draft minutes from the standing committees and boards for information. A couple of announcements. It was discussed at a previous meeting the potential of installing boat cameras at the boat slips at Captain Royal Millen Park. Andy and his staff has worked through that process. We've got the hardware identified. We're going to have to work on some getting electrical there to service them and make sure we have the appropriate internet connections. But we think that'll be a less than $10,000 ask all in. So that's certainly within the city manager's spending authority, and we'll work to identify those funds through our code budget. If there's any transfer of funds or needing action from the council, we'll bring it back to you, but we think we can move that forward and get that done. I want to bring you up to date on Live Oak Fiber. We've had a nightmare with these folks over the last month, 2 months, 3 months probably, and came to a real head on Thursday afternoon when they had a blowout on Airport Road that shut down the eastbound lanes for over 24 hours at a substantial cost to Destin water users and city, all parties involved. And so in an effort to bring this in for a landing, we revoked all of Live Oak's permits. So right now they are not permitted to work anywhere in the city. And we intend to hold those permits until Destin water users and the city and all other parties are made whole for the damage that was done on Airport Road, and it was significant. It was, Mr. Lockwood could tell you, they spent a lot of time and effort and money to get that thing back up and running. And so when all that's taken care of, we will issue them additional permits, but we're going to issue them one at a time. To date, they've had a number of permits around town, and when we'd have an issue, we'd issue a stop work order, but they'd go to another street and go to work. So they didn't care whether they had a stop work order or not. This way, they will have one permit that they can work under, and when that permit's closed out, we'll be glad to issue them a new one. So we hope that does some good and keeps the process moving, and keeps it done in a manner that is manageable and cost productive for the city and Destin water users and the other utilities.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Councilman Destin.
This question, City Manager, I seem to recall that the city's Right-of-Way Protection Act gives us the authority to require a bond from anyone working in the right-of-way. Are we doing that with them?
I don't believe so, but that conversation has been had, and if that is an option, we will certainly take advantage of it.
Yeah, unless they've changed the ordinance since we wrote it, it's there. So,
okay, we'll absolutely take a look at that, because we actually had that conversation earlier today, that would be good to have. So we will check into that. Thank you.
All right, one more, Councilwoman Trammell.
Yes, I just wondered if we were planning on including the suggestion that was made earlier in another meeting about not having them bore and do that on Fridays. All the other municipalities have suspended them from Fridays, and that way if something happens, then the people that are fixing it don't have to spend their weekends doing that.
At this point, we certainly have that ability, and I would hope they are willing to abide by the rules, whatever they are now that they're shut down. And we hope it's costing them a lot of money to be shut down, quite frankly, but we can certainly institute that in our policies.
I would suggest that.
Okay.
And just to kind of get a scope on what's left, are they 70% through the city? Based on the permits that we've now revoked,
I don't have that number, but we can certainly work on it and have it for you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on our end. You got anything else? Yep.
It was my understanding we have 15 underground companies in this town right now. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just one.
Oh, yeah, no.
So we're looking at any possibility at this
Oh, for sure,
point.
yeah, as far as your point to the Friday, of course.
Then you have the public hearings.
Ray, we need.
No, well,
need
I'm
Friday?
sorry. Dr. T has announcements to make. I don't do a
Thank
good
you.
job at remembering her.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Friday, April 25th is Arbor Day. We'll be holding a ceremony at Kel Air Nature Walk at 10 a.m. with a tree planting. Founders Day is Saturday, May 3rd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Community Center, and those invitations have been sent out by the Parks and Recs folks. There'll be a Memorial Day ceremony presented by the American Legion on Monday, May 26th at 11 a.m. at the Destin Memorial Cemetery. And I should also note that city offices will be closed that day. We've done e-bike infographics and some flyers. That's been a hot topic at several council meetings as well as around town. We've done the flyers in English and Spanish, and we do have those up on our website. We're working on a version in Portuguese. And over the next couple weeks, we'll be getting those out to the 15 largest employers in the city. So places like Walmart Supercenter, Big Kahuna's, Target, the Home Depot, and other folks will get all the different English, Spanish, and Portuguese flyer versions out to them so that they're able to distribute those to their employees. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the update. Ray, do we need a break? Nope, you're good? All right, we'll keep on trucking.
These are second readings. It should be.
All right, Ms. Kopp, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. And if it's okay with the City Council, I will read the two ordinances together, 2501 LC and 2502 CC, because they're connected. So ordinance number 2501 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Article 20 Building Regulations of the Land Development Code relating to contractor insurance and contractor revocations, removing Section 200800 contractors from the Land Development Code, providing for a business impact estimate as required by state law, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 2502CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, Licenses, Permits, and Miscellaneous to address contractor insurance and contractor revocations, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the City Code of Ordinances, providing for a business impact estimate, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is second reading of both ordinances. And as you know, it's taking these provisions related to building contractors out of the Land Development Code and putting them into the Code of Ordinances. That's why I read them together.
All right, thank you for that. At this time, this is a public hearing, so if anyone wishes to speak on these two topics, this is your time to do so for public comments. Seeing none, I will close the public comments of both public hearings, and I have a motion to be read by Councilwoman Trammell.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the City Council adopt ordinance 25 and of course my screen goes off, -01-LC and 25-02-CC.
Awesome. All right.
On second reading.
All right. I got a motion and a second. You have any further discussion? All right, you're just calling it. All right, seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote for both A and B public hearings. All right, ayes have it, so moved, 7-0.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance number 2509 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Section 71600 alcoholic beverage dispensing of the Land Development Code, creating an exception to the separation requirement from churches for certain tax-exempt organizations that specifically benefit veterans of the United States Armed Forces, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is second reading, and in between first and second reading, this did go to the LPA, who did recommend approval of the ordinance. And I know you're going to open it to the public hearing, but I do believe there are speakers that came to me before the meeting and informed me that they had a letter from a church. Okay.
Dan Dempsey. I live over on Indian Trail. I've been there for a few years. I'm also the canteen manager at AMVETS.
Give me the full address, just so the public record. Yep.
3857 Indian Trail, Unit 215, Destin, Florida, 32541.
I appreciate that. All right. Floor is yours.
Two quick things I wanted to read. First, our mission statement, people aren't familiar with, is to enhance and safeguard the entitlements of all American veterans who have served honorably and improve the quality of life for them, their families, and the communities. With the communities, we've donated to over 18 different places in Destin, including schools, churches, football, softball. Then with the reason we're really here, the variance, the church is 471 feet away from our business. That's measured from our front door to their property line. So we're 29 short of the 500 requirement. In the first reading, a couple of members mentioned that they thought it would be maybe in our best interest to contact the church. So we did. And their reply is, thanks for reaching out. I forwarded your email to our board of directors. We are all in agreement with AMVETS moving into the neighborhood. We see no problem with having your post near the church. Please stop by when you're in the area. I would love to meet you face to face. Please let me know if there's anything more we can do to help you with your relocation to Azalea Drive. Looking forward to meeting you all. Sandy Metcalf, she is the Executive Director of Shoreline Church.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. That's amazing. All right, with that, I'll open up to the public for this public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak on this topic, this is your time to do so. Looks like we got everyone in the affirmative in the audience. I will close the public comments, and I have Councilman Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make that motion to adopt ordinance 25-09-LC on second reading.
Thank you, sir. I have a second, Councilwoman Aber?
I'll second. Yep, I second.
She got it on the, yep, I'm going to go off that now. All right, with that, do I have any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call the vote for 2509LC. All right, ayes have it, so moved. Congratulations. Thank you guys for your service, and welcome to Azalea Drive. Time for the brick and mortar. Yeah.
See ya.
All right, with that, we're going to move straight on to council. Councilman Braden.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, the only thing I've got was a couple things. Reached out to the city manager to see what we've collected from our delivery vessels in the last 5 years, and that come out to $217,000. I'd just like to know where that money's went. I know some of the guys down there were saying that money was supposed to go to a code enforcement officer to try to regulate the guys that are operating illegally. But where does that money go? Is it going to a general fund or?
Yes, I can answer that for you. You're correct. The livery vessel permit money, 10% goes into our technology fund so that we have the technology to process permits, and the remainder just goes straight into the general fund, and it helps us offset the cost of having a code department.
Okay, thank you. And when Councilman Schmidt brought it up last meeting about these rogue operators, it seemed like from the staff and the council, it was like, well, I don't know if we can do anything, or it's too hard, we got to prove this. I don't know, what we can do, if anything. But it's like when Emerald Grand years ago, when they were blocking traffic and, in their turn lane, it was, by God, we got to do something. I don't care what it is, and we wound up changing the ordinance or something, and they couldn't collect money on the inbound. They had to collect it on the outbound to get the traffic off. But these guys have been bitching about these rogue operators at the boat ramps and at our city parks and transit slips, and it's, well, I don't know, we might be able to do something. I mean, I just don't get it. It's, and they're paying this kind of money, and I know we promised them, we're going to raise your rate, but we're going to put a code enforcement officer and find out about it. I was called a few years ago to Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp. There was an operator down there operating out of it illegally. I left Niceville. I was at the library with that board I was on. I left Niceville when I got the call. Drove from Niceville all the way to Joe's Bayou to the boat ramp. And there they were. Had all their kayaks all laid out there, all rods and reels and whatnot, ready to go. No code enforcement officer nowhere to be seen. Called the city manager again. Hey, where the hell's he at? Oh, he was in a meeting. We'll send him down there in a minute. So I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, the lady walks away from the group, and I'm walking from the water to the truck, and I'm like, excuse me, ma'am. I said, y'all renting these kayaks or anything? Oh, yeah, that's our guide right there. We're renting it. Okay, thank you. That's all it took. It's not that difficult. So it's just frustrating that we've been dealing with this, and we all know we've been dealing with it for years. And then instead of saying, and I appreciate the cameras, that's what we should have said was, hell yeah, we're going to put cameras there on the park. We're going to put them down at Joe's Bayou. I don't care what it takes, how many cameras you got to put there. We're going to catch them. We're going to be able to see who it is, the number on the boat. We'll handle it. Don't worry about it. Instead of, I don't know. It's kind of tough. We got to see who the guy is. We got to see the numbers. We don't know who his party is. That's the answer the public got. So thank you for getting the cameras and, trying to get this done. And I know people were raising hell about the same thing about the ice cream and or the vendors, whoever it is on the beach. I've had several tourists complain, and I've asked. I go down there. It's like I told the city manager not long ago. I was at the June Decker Boardwalk. Just walked down there, hanging out, seeing what was going on. Had a little dog with me, and the guy that was cleaning the bathrooms told me, hey, just FYI, don't go on the beach because with that dog, it's a $500 fine. And I asked people, you know, about the ice cream or events or whatever, and they don't like it. They don't like being hassled or whatever on the beach, but it's, we had to get sued over it, and it's costing us money now. The city's got to pay, or the insurance company's got to pay, before we actually told a code enforcement officer, get down there and do something, watch them. You know, I tried to get them years ago to go down Joe's Bayou, get a code enforcement officer, go down there and sit. Spend a couple days. It ain't hard. So,
Mr. Braden.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Do you mind?
No, not at all.
I've heard you before speak on the harbor master and about the money for the delivery vessel medallions and where is it going. I think we've talked about this on council for a number of years. So as I'm sitting here and listening to Mr. Giles' questions earlier, and Ms. Trammell said something about $20,000 salary, $22,000 salary. I've always heard that, oh, we can't do the harbor master because I don't have the harbor, blah, 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 blah. But we can have an employee of the city of Destin go down there and do other things that aren't harbor master certified stuff. I would think we could find a local or not a local that would love to work the harbor, the docks, for probably 12 months out of the year, but for sure 9 months out of the year, and pay them a code enforcement salary or more to just live on those docks every day. I bet you I would think we would have people wanting to do that. And then we would have one specific code officer on the harbor. I mean, is that something that, would be good to pursue?
You might
offering
find somebody.
a harbor code officer a higher salary because he's doing different jobs, and he's not a harbor master, but he's living at the harbor.
Well, we have.
Well, Joe's the water.
Yeah, we have this, and a great example is Joe's Bayou, the guys that run that bayou, the boat ramps. I mean, sometimes they almost go to blows down there, and there are fights down there, and we pay those guys, I don't know what it is, but it can't be $22,000 a year, it's probably less, to go down there and collect money. And it gets hostile down there. So if we can find somebody to do that, I know we can find somebody to go in the harbor. And like I said not long ago, a couple months ago, before I was termed out, the council made a motion and it passed 7-0 that we would put a code guy on the boardwalk. Yeah. So the city manager at that time called me in his office, I think it was Lance, want to know what, and he said it at the council meeting, we'll get you an office, see what you want, what you expect. I did. I said, I would like to see a code officer on that boardwalk. That's his baby. He lives, eats, and breathes it. If I call him up and say, how many pontoon boats does Luther's have? Don't tell me you got to go check. I want to know. That's your baby. And then get you get the development order for a piece of property. See what's supposed to be there and see what's actually there. Perfect. We can do it. No problem. Gotcha.
Mr. O'Connor, you want to
About 30 days later, I guess that was the end of that. That just went out the window and it was gone, done. Never. And then you look at emails. I mean, Councilman Gall, he went down there, walked the boardwalk, and there's all kinds of citations he could have wrote. He made a comment to the council meeting. And then I pull a public record to look at we get a report from a bi-weekly, whatever it was, report from code compliance. His email, walk the boardwalk, all is good. There ain't no way you can walk that boardwalk and not find one code violation. Ain't no way.
Do you want to set that as a priority for code to go put an application out and for code compliance to have the harbor as a priority?
And pay them more?
I've tried.
Pay them more?
Well, you tried at a previous
I tried. We made
city
the motion,
manager
it passed,
years
talked to the
ago.
city manager.
We have a new city manager now.
All right, I get yelled at for not following Robert's Rules of Order. The chair is not recognizing any of you. Steve, please speak.
So with this beach patrol plan that you all asked Code develop, we developed the special beach duty, and along with that, it was recognized that the harbor is also a special, unique location, and so we have made. Basically what we've done is I've identified 3 special duties in code: beach, harbor, and training. So like a field training officer, basically, right? You get a new officer in, and they have to be trained on how to do stuff in the field, right? So those 3 special duties. Those 3 duties would be assigned to seasoned officers, seasoned employees, okay? They wouldn't be assigned to anyone brand new, okay? And they do come with a percentage pay bump while you're doing that duty, okay? So if you do harbor duty for 4 hours in a day, you get that pay bump for those 4 hours. But if you do regular code officer sector duty, you just get your regular code sector duty. If you do harbor, or like with Riley, he gets beach duty for all the hours he's doing beach duty, right? And that's pretty much the only thing he does now. So he's getting that pay bump already, okay? So it's been recognized that is a need. It's manpower at this point. I know exactly who I would assign harbor duty to. I know exactly who I would assign training duty to if I could just get bodies in. So what you all are talking about is already taking place, and the systems and the processes are in place now to be able to hit the ground running as soon as I can get bodies.
Thanks for keeping us on track.
Yes, sir. Sometimes
That's all I have.
Sometimes I can try.
I appreciate it. That's all I have.
I know. No, I'm cool about this.
Legally talking about an item.
100%. The chair will recognize you to speak. Anything else? Would you like to speak? All right.
Nothing
Councilwoman Trammell, or Councilman Destin.
I will pass tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Bagby.
Thank you, Mayor. Underneath my name is my report back to y'all on the short-term rental. I did meet with the clerk and his chief that handles the short-term rental TDT collection. Last Monday, we had a great conversation. They sent me back to the city staff with several questions, I think about 7 questions. The city staff answered those questions. Questions were, do we charge a fee basically for the credit card, to use the credit card? Standard business type questions. Would we be willing to charge a flat fee? I told him I didn't think so, just because I didn't see that it was fair if you have a 5,000 square foot house that you are charging, $800 for, that houses 40 versus a 2-bedroom condo that houses 4 that you might be charging whatever we eventually decide, $300. A flat fee just didn't seem fair, but I would make sure that y'all were aware that was one of their questions. Would we be willing to do the enforcement? And I said yes, through the special magistrate. They will send the letters. They will, send us the notice that they're late, that they're more than 30 days late, and then they would turn it over to us. Does our system integrate with theirs? No, but they can email us a map which would have all the short-term rental condos and single-family residents, which the code enforcement officers could take in. If they saw a short-term rental that didn't have a dot on the map, they could report it back through the system. But they are currently tracking 1,200 single-family residences and 4,800 condos in the city of Destin that are paying them tourist development tax, short-term rental tax. Is the billing on a fiscal or a rolling cycle? It's on a fiscal cycle. Basically, it goes out in February. It's due by the end of March. If it's property sold, it doesn't roll over. The new owners have to do it. And then calculating square footage, they want to know, because they would be pulling from that field from the property appraiser's website, whether it was the heated square footage or the total square footage. And right now, I think we're using total square footage, but we might need to be using heated square footage, but that's something we can do. They asked me today for a statement of work, so I'll just read to you real quick what I sent to them. I copied Larry because I wasn't totally cognizant. I had a little minor procedure, and so I got knocked out. So when I was writing this, it was like, I hope, no, it was actually a medical procedure. I'm sorry, yeah.
Do you have
So,
propanol lock you out?
No, what their statement of work would include: mail out letters, invoices to each of the single-family residences and condos in Destin that serve as short-term rentals annually, collect the annual fee from those short-term rentals and remit the funds to the city, alert the city when any accounts are over 30 days past due, continuously update the list of short-term rentals in the city of Destin, share the updated list with the city in either map or spreadsheet format quarterly. We will take care of any delinquent enforcement through our magistrate, and we will also inform you if we have discovered additional short-term rentals that your crawler or office have not previously discovered. And like I believe I mentioned before, they have a program, an app that basically crawls through the internet and identifies when you say, hey, rent, it's got pro words, rent, Destin, whatever, and they find those and then they enforce it. So I'm looking forward, if there's anything else that y'all would like the clerk to do, just let Larry know and he can share it with the clerk and Josh. I hope to have by the next meeting a proposal or a MOU that says, hey, this is what we would be willing to do it for. I think they would be a lot less because they're not having to create anything new. They already have all this information.
They just add to it.
They have the square footage, they have the condos, they have the short-term rental, that are already paying the TDT. So they're just pulling from a database that already exists. They're not trying to create it and have somebody keep it updated every day when it changes. They update it already. So other than that, again, thank the sheriff and code for safe spring break, and I'll answer any questions on the short-term rental question.
Councilman Gao.
Thank you. Mr. Bagby, thank you for the effort. I do have a question about that. Sure. So you said they go through the internet through a crawler system and look for certain keywords. I've noticed with some of these short-term rentals, because I've tried to do very similar things, but they do not give an address until you actually rent. Do they have a means of overcoming that through their system?
I believe they do, but I will ask that specific question. I'll ask the question and copy Larry on the request, but they... and Walton County does the same thing. They have a person who's dedicated just to enforcement, finding people. Actually, I think they have two in the Okaloosa County office that all they do is look for places that are renting in Okaloosa County and receiving short-term rental income.
All right, and that's everything I got on the board. Anything else?
No.
Good deal. Councilwoman Aber.
Thanks, Mayor. Two things directed to Lisa and her team. Last week, I was privileged to go to the Morgan Sports Field and watch the Destin High School baseball players be thrilled to death to have access to that field and all the people that donated their time. Can you explain just a little bit so it's on the record, Lisa? There were like contractors and developers that like built out the field. Go into that just a minute, please.
Sure. So we have the agreement with the high school, what we needed to make that softball field a baseball field. So they did, they had a contractor, a lot of donated time. They did pay for the poles and the safety netting all around the field. That's great. They brought in a, we had to put the infield, we had to grass it, not turf, grass. And so it's all legal high school, and we had our parks guys, they spent a lot of time making that, because now they're keeping it up. So it was a full partnership with a lot of different people.
Well, it was great to see everybody come out and support the opening of it. The other question I did get back from somebody that had made the suggestion, can we change the field from Dolphin to Destin Sharks, since it's D Field? And I just throwing that out to you. You can go through whatever you need to go through, see if it would work or not. But anyway, and then the other thing I wanted to commend you on, I wasn't here for it. It was the first year I've missed the Easter egg hunt in several years, but I got so many calls from people saying what a great job your team did on all the fields for every age that went out there for the Easter egg hunt. All the prizes and everything you had, the Easter bunny out there, bunnies for people to hold, just lots of candy and lots of fun. And I know it's a ton of work for all of your parks folks. So I just want to commend you and your team for another great Easter egg hunt weekend. So thank you.
Well, thank you. They work very hard. They do a great job, but it's our privilege.
Councilwoman Trammell, anything? Was that for?
I just wanted to give her kudos too for the Pooch Palooza. Our little committee made over $1,000
Nice.
at their first effort. So now they have goals to go for more. And it's all been deposited in the Parks Foundation, just sitting there waiting for them.
Oh, there we go. Good deal. Councilman Gao.
Since everybody's giving Lisa kudos, I'm just going to give everybody over there kudos. Crystal, maybe not Steve. No, Steve. No, I think staff does a great job. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That means it's my turn to
Yes, sir. The
talk.
chair has recognized you to speak.
Okay. Steve, you mentioned about that people get different pay scales based on their duties, which is very, very neat. So does that mean that our payroll timesheet system is allowing us to track what people are doing and throughout the city then because they're getting paid different rates? Do you know?
I just know when speaking with Jamie that we had already built in the training duties because previously what would happen is if you were identified as a training officer, you would just get $250 a year, right? That's just what you got for the extra duty of training, right? Obviously, training a brand new individual is $250 doesn't really cut it, honestly, because it's a lot more time than just $250. So my understanding is that there's a special duty that you can enter into the system, and then when you go in and do your time, you just say, yes, I was working from this time to this time, doing these duties, and it does track that.
Crystal, is that the timesheet payroll system? Is that what we're talking about? They're able to track their time and pay and all that stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't have all the details because I've been deep in a different software implementation these past few months.
Okay.
But yes, I know that, what I do know is that Jamie set up a pay differential so that people who work nights, weekends, or do special duties, she's got that set up now in the system.
Gotcha. And that also is similar to allowing all the employees to enter their time doing different duties.
That's not, Andy might be able to give you an update, but I haven't I've been involved in
I can tell you,
a different
we
project.
are. Andy has Parks and Rec set up, and we are entering our time.
Based on where you're at or something?
I'm sorry?
Based on like what you're doing or something?
Yes. What properties we're at.
Does that sound right, Andy? You're all using
right.
your name.
They're all correct.
Cool, that's great to hear. Steve, thank you for continuing to work on code stuff, and I mean, I don't think there's complaints that people that were asking questions, myself, I don't believe that it was that, and I don't think you took it that way.
Not at all.
But I am happy of what you are doing with the code officers. And I'm hopeful that you will continue to do that. And because I see good things coming with the efficiencies and all these, the approach that I believe you, maybe others, are taking with them. And it's great. And I think that's going to help a lot. Yes, money. I think we need to revisit that. If $22,000 is a salary that we're paying certain people, I definitely would like to revisit that. But just the in-house things that you're doing to make it better, it's noticeable. and I think it's only going to continue to get better, so thank you.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Do we have any update on the parking lot company RFQ, RFB that's going to possibly give us a quote to provide camera detection on our parking lots? Is there a bid out? Is it a request out for bid?
So I've prepared that RFP, submitted it to staff to review. I have to change the formatting to our approved formatting. It can be ready to go out probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'll be unavailable next week, but I'll work on it as soon as I get back. Finish. It's already finished. I just need it to
Can we get that?
put it in the right format.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Jeff keeps changing the format, Counselor Smith, so I can't keep up.
And then one last thing for Larry and Kim, if y'all are okay with it. I was reached out about an empty parcel on Indian Trail, an owner that's interested in potentially selling it for a future park or access and things like that. And I was going to see if we could task them, give them the contact details to contact that gentleman and talk about it with him and to bring it back. No, ma'am. Are we okay if I allow
okay
them
with
to
that.
reach out, or do we need to make a motion? Or?
Is it water connected, or are you talking internal?
It's on the south side of Indian Trail. It potentially connects to that bayou in the very back. It's the one that goes from Indian Trail all the way to the North Indian Trail bayou.
Oh, is that
The long, narrow strip. The long, yeah.
the lead parcel?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Oh, yeah.
are we
talked
okay?
about that years ago.
Yeah, I think they're interested to have a discussion, so I was gonna task them with doing that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I can get y'all those details, and y'all can bring us back some, whatever that looks like. Cool. Sounds good. All right, that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, City Manager, can you have Jamie email us the pay portion for the code folks? I think we have a very bad number.
I don't think it's more than 22.
It's more than 22, because I think our lowest paid person makes 15 in the city, and that is over $30,000
Yeah,
for a full-time employee,
the
so.
s- I think it was just a number. The starting pay for a code officer is $20.51.
Okay, so that's over $40,000 a year. So I don't want us to, we keep saying that, and I'm sitting here going, please don't push a bad number.
Awesome. I got nothing. Ms. Kopp?
One thing, the foreclosure action that we filed regarding the property at 222 Seibert, it is ready to proceed to, let's put it this way, the next documents I file are going to get us probably to a foreclosure sale relatively quickly. So I wanted to let the council know we were going to go on to that step. The property has not come into compliance, but if anyone objects to that or wants to talk before I make those final filings, I would call an executive session. So just let me know if I need to do that or if I'm good to go. Objections?
Don't do it.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none.
It shall be done.
Fair enough, and it rhymed. All right, public comments for those.
Hanging out.
Both of them.
No, and Monica? No.
2 of them were Destin Waters, though.
All right. Oh, bless your heart. All right, with that, 3 minutes, sub 9 o'clock, adjourned.